On the ground lies an old man motionless, his face soaked in blood. His eyes are wide open, staring blankly, unable to close. The young man stands there frozen stiff, paralyzed by sheer terror. He stands motionless, staring intently at the scene before him. Grandfather lies in a pool of blood, his body severed in two eyes, still wide open. My grandfather is dead. He keeps his eyes glued to his grandfather's corpse, where life was snuffed out in such a brutal, heartless way. His eyes are incredibly empty right now, without a single flicker of painful emotion. Can I not even cry? Looking up at the house engulfed in a sea of flames, his expression becomes even more hollow. He was the only family I had. Why did everything have to turn out this badly? Suddenly, memories come flooding back. He is excited, his face beaming with joy, clutching a medicinal herb to show his grandfather. "Grandpa, look at this, it's a spirit-binding herb. Grandfather is there drying herbs." Hearing the call, he looks up, sees the boy swaying the herb in his hand, and smiles. "Back already, son." Grandfather takes the tray of herbs, inspects them, and says, "Oh, this one is big. We can get at least 5 silver for this." The boy sets the herb down and replies, "Near where I found the herbs there was a high cave, but the mother fox wasn't there. Only the fox kits were, Grandpa." Grandfather looks at him and asks, "So did you kill the little foxes?" The boy looks at him confused. "Huh, why would I do that? If the mother came back and saw her babies killed, she'd be so sad." The boy carries the basket of herbs away. Grandfather praises him. "That's right. You did well. Put the things away and let's have dinner." "Yes, sir." Grandfather's face suddenly turns stern. He looks at the boy and says, "Can you promise me one thing?" Hearing this, the boy turns around to face him. Grandfather looks straight at him, his voice deepening. "My boy, the true nature you are hiding deep inside, never let anyone else see it." Back to the present, the expression on his face changes completely. His eyes are blood red, a chilling, ghastly smile spreading across his face. "I'm sorry, Grandpa." In a flash, he grabs a sickle from the ground and lunges forward. I couldn't keep my promise. A busy, bustling county town with rows of houses stretching out Zhongyang County. Carriage wheels clatter steadily along the dirt road. In the carriage, they are escorting a few criminals with rough, fierce faces. The crowds around are gathering more and more. The sound of soldiers escorting the bandits makes the whole street stir. "Hey, hey, look at them! Those are the thieves and the bandits! Useless trash!" the crowd chants in unison. "Die, you scum!" A mysterious figure is looking down at the crowd below, wondering, who is that guy to be treated with such special favor? He even has his own private carriage. The boy is sitting there handcuffed all alone in a separate section. Nearby, someone takes a sip of tea and mutters, "That brat is too young, probably not even of age yet." A man beside him replies, "Don't let his youth fool you, he's the most dangerous of the bunch. That must be why he gets the special treatment." The man sits down, orders some water, and says, "But you're a martial artist, so of course you wouldn't be scared." Out on the street, the soldiers continue to escort him and his accomplices. You'd be surprised if you knew how many people he's killed with that sickle. They call him the sickle demon. It's just killing, isn't it? "Hey, stop talking." The other man laughs and asks, "So what do you want this time?" He replies, "I need to hire someone who, even if they died, no one would care about." He is in the middle of speaking when his eyes stop on the street below. Amidst the crowd, someone throws a rock straight at the boy's head. The person who threw it shouts, "You're getting off easy with this punishment." The 2 men on the upper floor look down at the person cursing. The boy is stunned. "Parasite." "Oh my goodness." The boy hangs his head slightly, blood trickling down. The man stops stunned to the point of disbelief as he sees the boy's face. The boy sweeps his hair aside, revealing his blood-stained face. The man's eyes widen. He is so beautiful that he could be mistaken for a woman, yet he commits murder with such a lovely face. Before he can finish his sentence, he is interrupted. "I have no more requests for you." The man on the other side is startled and jumps up, watching him rush down the stairs. "What the hell you called me here and now, hey?" He walks out of the tea house, brushing past the group of soldiers escorting the boy. Determined to find his target in the cage with a blank face, the boy is the perfect choice. Night falls over the inner city of Zhongyang. At the Golden Jade Palace, a few guards are patrolling the hallway of the prison. The boy sits in his cell with 2 guards standing watch outside the door. Both hands are shackled, his body covered in wounds and soaked in blood. I was too impulsive. He stares off into the distance, recalling that bastard. He looked at the boy, a mocking smile on his lips. Impressive. He took a stance, staring at the boy with bulging eyes. I was wondering who was tailing me, and it turns out to be just some nameless brat. His eyes were blood-red and ghastly like a monster, a true monster. He held a sword in one hand and gripped the boy's throat with the other, lifting him up and making it hard to breathe. He had to clench his teeth and struggle. Finally, he had found the one who killed his grandfather, but he wasn't like the others. He had taken him down before he could even move. Even if they met again, he wouldn't be able to beat him. The boy gasps for air, gripping the man's hand, his face turning red from the lack of oxygen. I can't find a way to kill him. The boy remembers what he said. Just a nameless brat. The boy mutters 2 words, martial arts. If I could learn martial arts, would I be able to defeat him? I will never get a second chance. Suddenly, a puff of smoke drifts in. The boy is startled, watching the smoke spreading, looking toward the door where the 2 guards are standing. Smoke, is there a fire? No, this smell is strange. I've tasted all kinds of herbs when I lived with Grandpa. This stuff is... He frowns, deducing 300 herbs, angelica, valerian root. There's smoke, but why is there no fire? This scent. It's strange. I've tasted every kind of herb imaginable living with the old man, but this... He frowned, deep in thought. Angelica. Angelica sinensis valerian root. The guard inhaled the smoke and swayed, then collapsed onto the grass. Mo Kin Van realized the entire prison had fallen unconscious. He recognized that smell. It was anesthetic smoke. His own head began to swim, and soon he lost consciousness too. The cell door slowly creaked open. A shadow stepped inside, strode right up to him, and reached out. Just then he stirred slightly. The intruder glanced at him. Mo Kin Van's eyes snapped open, startling the man. You're still awake. He lunged up, putting all his strength into a knee strike to the man's chest. Caught off guard, the attacker staggered back, clutching his chest. Mo Kin Van seized the chance and bolted from the cell, his head spinning as he ran. He didn't fully understand what was happening, but this was his chance to escape. Thankfully, he had been sloppy with his spice mixing earlier. That was the only reason he'd woken up from the stupor. He suddenly stopped dead in his tracks, his body frozen. He couldn't move a muscle. He'd been pressure-pointed. The man standing behind him had locked his meridians with just 2 fingers. He looked back in shock, unable to believe it. I already sealed your points. You shouldn't be able to move. When did he catch up to him? Is this martial arts? The man swung his arm, sending him crashing into the wall. Gritting his teeth against the bone-shattering pain, he thought to himself, a martial arts master. Could this be the one who killed my grandfather? The man stood there, looking imposing as he gazed down at him. But no, this wasn't him. Even though they looked identical, the other guy had a long scar on his left cheek. Just then, another man entered the Amber Guard. Is he the one? The Amber Guard bowed respectfully. Young master, I told you to stay outside. I've never set foot in this filthy prison before. I just wanted to take a look, but it's not as interesting as I thought, he replied. Lying on the ground, he observed the 2 men talking. Is that really him? Lift him up so I can see his face, then bring me a chair. Yes, young master. The guard grabbed his hair and slammed his head against the wall, then ripped off the face covering. You were right, the man said. He looks just like me. He was so stunned he couldn't believe his eyes. Mo Kin Van smirked. How ironic to suddenly find someone who looks exactly like me. Truly, it is fate. He stared at the man in horror. The man continued. You seem just as surprised, don't you? He sat down on the chair, crossing his legs casually. I heard you were going to die in this prison. In 2 days, you're supposed to be torn apart by 4 horses. He looked him straight in the eye and replied, That's right. Mo Kin Van leaned back in the chair, looking down at him with contempt. Life is truly unfair, isn't it? We were born with identical faces, yet I am a young master and you are just a death row inmate. He listened silently. The man smiled slightly. A chance to become the 3rd young master of the mansion. An opportunity to replace me. Mo Kin Van gasped. A chance. Mo Kin Van smirked again. It's not difficult at all. You will live in the mansion, eat well, dress well, and have servants at your beck and call. You'll enjoy things you've never even dreamed of. He paused, then added, and when everything is over, you will receive a large sum of money and be free to go wherever you want. The Amber Guard opened his hand, revealing a red pill. If you agree, take this. He stared intently at the pill, suspicious. Is it poison? Do you think we would ever trust a death row inmate like you? The Amber Guard replied with a cruel expression. If you complete the mission I give you, I will give you the antidote. Well, choose. He looked at the pill images of his grandfather flashing through his mind. The man held the pill out. I've been given a second chance, he thought, and opened his mouth, swallowing the pill whole. Seeing this, Mo Kin Van smirked with satisfaction. A chance for revenge. He looked at him and asked, Now, young master, will you really give me that chance? He smiled. A wise decision. Mo Kin Van ordered the Amber Guard to release his pressure points and take off the shackles. As you wish, young master. The guard immediately used his technique to release him. As the shackles fell away, he stood up and took a deep breath. The Amber Guard said, I will lead the way. Please follow. Mo Kin Van replied very well. Then he called out to him, You go first. The Amber Guard stepped forward to scout the area. He turned back and announced, It's safe. Please be careful. Just as the guard turned around, he saw Mo Kin Van, who he had just been protecting, with his neck snapped, his head twisted backward by his hands. He stared in absolute shock. What? The corpse of Mo Kin Van slumped to the floor. He looked at the panicked Amber Guard and chuckled. Oh, hello. Now what shall we do? The guard's eyes widened, a smirk forming on his face. The impostor was dead. Before the Scythe demon was captured, it was a full moon night. A blood-curdling scream tore through the night as a house in the city erupted in flames. That was followed by desperate wails. Run! A figure carrying the skull of a victim walked through the sea of fire, thinking, How interesting. A young man, left hand holding a skull, right hand swinging a scythe, drove the survivors to scream and scramble for their lives. Help me. He thought, This is truly amusing. Wherever the scythe swung, blood sprayed. His face was twisted with madness and excitement. I have killed everyone involved in my grandfather's death. No one in the house survived. Corpses lay everywhere. Blood flowed like a river. He stood watching his masterpiece, pondering the intense emotion he felt while slaughtering these people pleasure. He remembered his grandfather's words, Never reveal to anyone the true nature hidden deep within you. He reflected on his true self, looked at the blood-stained scythe, and tossed the skull aside. Then he wondered, in this situation, surrounded by people gasping their last breaths, what kind of expression should I be showing? Am I smiling? He lifted his hand to smell the stench of blood, his body trembling with excitement. Is this the true nature that grandfather spoke of? He recalled his grandfather's words, Never under any circumstances reveal your true nature to anyone. A servant in the estate fell screaming in panic, A demon! A scythe! As he approached with the scythe in hand, he hesitated. Is my true nature really this wicked? He swung the blade, wearing a smile like a demon from hell, his thoughts racing. I don't know, but right now I'm just going to kill to my heart's content before the scythe could even descend. A foot stomped hard into his hip, kicking him so violently that he was sent flying into the wooden door. The door, unable to withstand the impact, collapsed. Losing his momentum, he fell with it, coughing up blood as he scrambled to get up, while the rescued servant immediately fled the scene. Meanwhile, the straw-hatted man was surprised to see his target stand up after such a kick. He smiled with intrigue, drew his sword, and spoke. You're still alive, impressive. Clutching his bruised side, he gritted his teeth and stood up to observe his opponent, silently thinking, This guy looks extremely dangerous. The man approached wearing a triumphant, scrutinizing smile. It seems you haven't even learned any martial arts. In the blink of an eye, the man closed the distance. And yet you survived my ultimate attack. Startled by the man's speed, he couldn't even react as the man grabbed his throat and lifted him off the ground. He's too fast to cover such a distance in a single second. Is this even human? The man looked extremely amused. Not bad, he growled, tightening his grip. So you're just some unknown brat with no martial arts training daring to tail me? The opponent plunged his sword directly into Mo Kin Van's stomach. His breath hitched into weak, wheezing gasps. As agonizing pain surged through him, he spat out blood. The man retracted the sword, making the wound burn even more. Then with a sneer, A kid who knows no martial arts but can withstand my attack? Truly rare. With that, he stabbed another blow into Kin Van's chest, a wicked smile on his face. Best to finish you off now. He leaned in to pull the body closer, letting the sword sink deeper. Blood gushed from Mo Kin Van's mouth, staining the man's cloak. The man muttered, You shouldn't have gone around killing people. You've just cut your own life short. You should have lived a quiet life instead. The pain and blood loss made his head spin. He frowned, filled with regret. Was I really defeated this easily? I finally found the person who killed grandfather. Exhaustion and fatigue washed over him. His vision began to fade as a final thought flashed. Is this how I'm going to die? Ending the flashback inside the prison cell, he snapped Mok Kinvan's neck. The final expression on Kinvan's face was one of extreme shock, just as the amber guard turned his head to look. He let go, and Mok Kinvan's body collapsed to the ground like a broken puppet. He wore a sly smile and asked, "How about now the imposter is dead?" The amber guard lunged forward, grabbing his throat and pinning him to the prison wall, cursing, "You bastard!" He gritted his teeth, questioning, "Are you insane? How dare you kill the young master? Do you want to die?" Grabbing the wrists that were strangling him, he replied with a smile, "Actually, the opposite. A body double is meant to take the place of the real person in dangerous situations." As he struggled to pry the man's hands away, he spoke while trying to divert the man's attention. "I'm so excited, I just want to obediently follow you right now." Seeing that the amber guard's grip didn't loosen, he sighed inwardly. Why is he so strong? The man noticed his struggle, tightened his grip, and said, "Don't you realize I could kill you?" He still replied with a faint smile. "If you intended to kill me, you would have done it long ago." "I don't think you have an ounce of loyalty to that young master anyway." As if hit in the heart, the amber guard glared, shouted nonsense, and slammed him to the ground. From being pinned to the wall to being thrown down, the sudden change left him unable to do anything but accept it. The amber guard pulled out a dagger hidden behind his back. He hovered over him and threatened, "I will kill you." He chuckled softly and asked, "Is that really necessary?" The man frowned and replied, "Why wouldn't it be?" He calmly analyzed, "I took the poison you gave me and can't live without the antidote. That means I have no choice but to follow your orders. Isn't this a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity? The third young master of the ManhwaCapped estate will from now on become your loyal dog." The sharp dagger in the man's hand was poised to strike. The man questioned, "So you mean I should betray the young master and use you like a puppet?" He smiled and remained silent. The man looked at him for a long time as if weighing the pros and cons. Finally, he smirked, swung the dagger up, and slammed it down late at night in the prison. The dagger remained buried in the ground, its position only a finger's width from Kinvan's face, having sliced off a lock of his hair. The amber guard put the dagger back in its sheath and declared, "From now on you are Mok Kinvan. Let's call our protagonist Mok Kinvan from now on, because from here on out he will live with this identity." The man stood up, no longer restraining Mok Kinvan. He lay sprawled on the ground, looking at the lock of cut hair, his lips curling into a smile that became increasingly twisted and wicked. At the ManhwaCapped estate, the amber guard changed his clothes and arranged his quarters, instructing him, "But you are not allowed to meet anyone at the ManhwaCapped estate." He took his clothes, put them on, and asked, "Then how is that any different from being a body double?" The man tied his hair back and coldly replied, "Since you've chosen to be the substitute, you have no right to ask questions. If you get caught, don't expect me to give you the antidote." Mok Kinvan replied with a smile. "Fine," he added, turning back with a puzzled look. He pointed at him and threatened, "If you betray me or try anything behind my back, I'll kill you on the spot." He obediently smiled and replied, "Understood." He tossed him a pill. "Chew on this. This nasty thing is the antidote. If you don't take it within 24 hours, the poison will spread throughout your body. Remember that." The first light of a new day glimmered on the horizon. Mok Kinvan took the pill and chewed it greedily as if it were candy, thinking to himself how lucky he was. Sitting by the windowsill, he touched the wound on his abdomen and sighed to himself that not only had he survived those stabs, but he had also been granted a new life. As he chewed the pill and gazed at the scenery outside, Mok Kinvan whispered to himself that perhaps this was everything his grandfather had done to prevent him from dying. Children won't die until they've avenged their grandfather, so don't worry, Grandpa. His goal now was revenge. Recalling the face of his enemy, he calculated, "That guy must be convinced I'm dead. The body of the original target has likely already been found." Beyond that, there was the burning desire to learn martial arts. Looking at the sunrise and the training ground in the estate, he mused, "They say this is a martial arts clan. I'll pretend to be the third young master to learn their arts, and then I'll hunt down the one who killed my grandfather." He recalled the horrific scene of his grandfather being cut in two by that person. Embracing the morning sunlight, he made a firm resolution to kill that man in the exact same way he had murdered his grandfather. At the McKeem estate, he sat contemplating how miraculously he had survived eating and thinking at the same time. The opportunity to learn martial arts was opening up before him. He scanned his surroundings, sipping wine deep in thought, and pondered about the guard Cam who had been left to watch over him. Van found him annoying. "He's such a pain." Go-chan was standing guard, tapping his foot and suppressing the anger ready to erupt. While tapping his foot, he calculated. Has Cam gone soft? What's so special about this brat, even though he didn't even know martial arts yet? Recalling the incident, Go-chan exclaimed in shock. Wait, he already killed the original target. So what about the plan? The guard, Cam, replied, "You're too noisy." He quickly covered the man's mouth and continued, "It doesn't matter. Your role hasn't changed. Just follow the plan. Watch him and make sure he doesn't leave here. In the meantime, I'll find another way," and then he coolly added, "We'll kick him out, and we'll side with the other faction." Go-chan tried to stay calm. "Cam, didn't you say you gave him poison?" Why, he hurriedly chased after him. "He can't defy us. The reason we chose the third young master from the start is because—" Cam immediately cut him off. "He's not that kind of person." He wondered, "What do you mean he's not the obedient type? He's a death row inmate who killed the target to take his place. For someone on the brink of death, he is extremely sharp." He walked away slowly. "He is a dangerous person. Getting involved with him brings us no benefit." Go-chan kept silent, not saying another word. Standing outside, he felt frustrated. What exactly is so special about this brat? He doesn't know martial arts. The poison has taken effect. Damn it, I can't go against orders. Noises outside caught his attention. Van remained calm while eating. The guard Cam hadn't even mentioned why they needed a substitute. He just left a guard and walked away. Though he had only been here for a short while, Van had already begun to grasp the atmosphere of this place. What he sensed immediately was that this place wasn't dangerous enough to require a substitute. On the contrary, it was quite safe, which meant there was another reason. He tapped his finger on the table. Could it be they need a substitute without anyone finding out? Van smiled and snapped his chopsticks. He whispered to himself, "It's not like he intends to switch sides." Outside, Go-chan was still diligently guarding. He was nodding off from sleepiness. The door opened, making him jump. "Go." Chan snapped, "What do you need to use the bathroom?" Van replied, "No. I just wanted to breathe some fresh air." "I also wanted to ask, do you want to join me?" "Go." Chan angrily pointed at the room. "Shut your mouth. If you don't want to smell blood, get back inside right now," Van calmly replied. "You're Go-chan, right? You just need to keep this a secret, that's all." Go-chan furiously grabbed Van by the collar and shoved him against the wall. "It seems you've forgotten your place. If you bother me, you won't have a good ending. Get back in there now." Van assessed him. "This guy seems much weaker than the guard Cam." Van grabbed Go-chan's right arm. "What?" Before he could finish, Van had already slammed him to the ground. He locked the man's right arm behind his back, pinned him to the floor, and hit a pressure point on Go-chan's back. He was terrified. His body wouldn't move. Could it be he knows how to strike pressure points? Go-chan struggled to get up. "You bastard!" He was hiding the fact that he knows martial arts. Van was surprised and continued to strike pressure points. "You can still move." "Did I do it in the wrong spot?" "I'm just copying what that guard Cam did last time, but it's harder than I thought." Go-chan turned his head in pain, terrified, thinking, "What the hell is he talking about?" "You mean, you learned that just by watching it once?" "Cam was right. This guy is way too dangerous." He tried to struggle up. Have you forgotten about the poison?" "You should have remembered. If you don't neutralize the toxin regularly, blood will leak from every pore in your body and you'll die in agony." Go-chan gritted his teeth. "Aren't you going to let me go, Mok?" Kyung-woon reached out and covered his mouth. Go-chan shouted, "You bastard! What are you doing?" "Mok," Kyung-woon quickly cut him off. "Oh, right, the poison. I almost forgot." He bit his own hand and dripped blood into Go-chan's mouth. Go-chan grabbed his own throat, frantically circulating his internal energy to push back the toxin. Kyung-woon said, "Ever since I was little, picking herbs with my grandfather, I've tested so many toxins that my own blood has become poisonous." He kicked Go-chan hard in the shoulder, speaking while licking the wound on his hand. "Just by smelling or tasting it, I can immediately identify the herbs mixed into it. Most poisons are useless against me. He stared at him with cold, dead eyes. So I don't need any of that so-called neutralizer. Oh, that's right, I have a question for you. Tell me about the Mac Sword estate. By the way, since I'm the only one who can neutralize toxins in the blood, I think you'll be very useful to me. Go-chan looked at him in terror. He's an absolute monster. At the Mac Sword estate in the master's quarters, Mok-in Gang lay unconscious on the bed. The old royal physician sighed. Is there really no other way? I've exhausted all my knowledge and experience trying every herb, but I can't even find the cause of the illness. Master, you should pick your successor soon. The Mac Sword estate has 4 sons, but the master had not yet designated a successor before falling ill, which is precisely why. The situation at the Mac Sword estate right now is like the calm before a great storm. If the master dies, the sons will undoubtedly slaughter each other to seize the title. The head mistress dotes on the eldest son, who knows what kind of schemes she'll pull to put him in power. Lady Seo-ok, the master's primary wife, walked in and asked, "How is he doing?" The old man replied, "My lady..." Lady Seo-ok cut him off. "I am asking about his condition." The old man said sadly, "I am guilty of having shallow knowledge. I cannot cure him. It can only be described as a strange disease." Lady Seo-ok held her forehead. "Just as I suspected. Everyone calls it a strange, confusing disease. It seems there is no choice but to use sorcery." The old man was shocked. "My lady, sorcery is just superstition. How could you use such a thing?" She cast a cold glance at him. "Then what would you have me do, just sit here and wait for my husband to die?" The old man flustered. No, that's not what I meant." Lady Seo-ok stepped closer to the master. "I don't want to hear any more. I've already invited a shaman who specializes in curing strange diseases. You may leave." The old man pleaded. "But my lady," she said coldly, "I will have the shaman heal the master. Therefore, no one is allowed to enter the main room. No one at all." Go-chan finished recounting the situation at the Mac Sword estate. He fell into deep thought. "I see." Mok Kyung-woon stood up. "All right, let's get out of here." Go-chan asked hurriedly. Go where?" Mok Kyung-woon looked out the window deep in thought. "Where do you think we're going?" He put his hands on his hips, speaking with firm confidence. "I'm going to meet the master." Kyung-woon strode forward and said, "So you mean Mok Deong-gon and the guard Kam really wanted to set a trap? To make me a body double and pull the strings so that I and the eldest son, Mok Gyo, would slaughter each other?" Go-chan was startled and replied, "Yes, that's exactly it. This is the most plausible plan they came up with. The eldest son, Mok Gyo, 20 years old, has a distinct mole on his left cheek. He's addicted to alcohol and women. He's at the tavern almost every day. He's the most incompetent of the 4 brothers, already greedy and vicious. The second son, Mok Yun-byong, 18 years old, inherited his mother's looks. His eyes are sharp as knives, his nature is clever and cunning. No one can predict what tricks he'll use to ascend to the position of master. The plan is to lure both of them to the same location. Place me the body double there, then provoke Mok Yun-byong into killing me. When he lowers his guard, the eldest son will stab him in the back. That way both sides will end up killing each other. Quite the diabolical mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind strategy. No matter who survives, both brothers will be struck from the succession list for killing family members. That's when Mok Deong-gon would gracefully step in and easily gain the upper hand. He calculated everything carefully except for one variable that appeared, which is the fact that I sent Mok Deong-gon to his death. Go-chan followed him and asked, "But young master, why are you so determined to meet the master?" Kyung-woon tore up the paper in his hand and answered calmly, "From what I understand, the master's life and death are closely linked to my own fate. That is why I have to meet him." He quickly added, "But if Guard Kam finds out that you left, what will happen?" As he spoke, he threw the paper away. You'll keep this a secret from me, won't you?" "Thank you, Guard Go-chan." He was surprised. Damn it, Lady Seo-ok is already standing there waiting. An old man was walking quickly toward her. The old man said, "So can I see the master now?" "So that old man is the sorcerer missing." She glanced him over, then added, "I've heard this sorcerer missing possesses great supernatural powers, so I'll trust you just this once." Missing quickly returned the gesture. "Thank you, my lady. The longer this mysterious illness drags on, the more his lordship's condition will deteriorate. Therefore, order everyone within a 30-step radius of the main residence to leave at once, lest they encounter misfortune." Lady Seo-ok replied calmly, I have already taken care of everything. All the guards stationed at the entrance have been withdrawn. The old man looked at her and reminded her, "Your ladyship should also withdraw now." As the lady brushed past him, she asked, "You still remember what I instructed you, don't you?" Missing confirmed, "Yes, of course I remember." "It is the master's seal and a secret letter," she said excitedly. "If you find them, I will reward you with 300 silver coins immediately." The old man glanced at Lady Seo Oak. "Thank you, my lady." She immediately ordered, "All of you get out of here." The servants hurriedly obeyed. "Yes, my lady." She scoffed coldly. "I never wanted to put my faith in this flaky sorcery anyway." Lady Seo Oak was momentarily surprised to see someone looking clearly annoyed. It was Mokdi Chun, a son born to a lowly courtesan. She walked away filled with disdain. "Even if I understand the master's affairs with courtesans, the matter of handing down the family inheritance to that low-born creature is simply unforgivable." As Lady Seo Oak moved further away, Mok Kyung-woon, looking from the opposite side, asked curiously, "Who is that over there?" Go-chan hurriedly replied, "That is the fourth young master." "It seems he is practicing martial arts." Kyung-woon suddenly recalled, "Ah, so it's Mokdi Chun. Mokdi Chun. He is a man of exceptional martial arts, not lazy at all, and shares a similar personality to the master. That's why he's the most favored." He asked, "Is that how one practices martial arts?" Go-chan instructed, "He is performing stances to improve the strength of his lower body, as the foundation of martial arts originates from there." Mok Kyung-woon said, "I see." Guard Go-chan asked, "If I were to learn martial arts, would I be able to kill Guard Cam?" He was stunned. Kyung-woon glanced at him. "Did you not hear me clearly? I asked if I learn martial arts, can I finish off Guard Cam?" Guard Go-chan stared at him speechless. "Why so sudden? Could it be that this guy discovered I was planning to abandon him? He's smart, but this is beyond imagination." He gulped, trying to keep his composure. Go-chan hurriedly replied, "Young master, basic martial arts is the process of training internal energy." He interrupted, "Internal energy." That's right, training internal energy is about regulating your breath using breathing exercises to cleanse accumulated energy. Once enough internal energy is stored, then the body will become strong. However, internal energy is not something that can be harvested in a single day. Even if you started training now, it would be difficult to defeat a top-tier martial artist like Guard Cam because he has over 35 years of experience. Not to mention his techniques are also extremely exquisite. He quickly realized, "So that means in the short term it's very difficult to do." He replied, "Yes." Go-chan smiled wickedly, thinking to himself, "Oh, you probably won't be able to do it in your entire life. Training internal energy requires a standard time frame. You must start by the age of 5 or 9, otherwise tainted energy will accumulate. No matter what you do, success is very unlikely, which means you will never be able to accumulate internal energy." He thought, trying to suppress a laugh, "Understand now, just keep practicing. Even if you do succeed, you'll still be nothing but a frog at the bottom of a well." Suddenly, Mok Kyung-woon stared fixedly at Go-chan. He reached out and touched his eyes. "Your gaze is so greedy it makes me want to gouge them out, Guard Go-chan. From now on, become my man." Go-chan felt a little relieved. "Yes," he muttered to himself. "So killing Guard Cam is impossible. He doesn't trust me, so it's hard to pull him in." He nodded in agreement, lowering his voice. "In any case, we should leave quickly." Kyung-woon asked, "Why?" The fourth young master truly detests the third young master. He wondered, what happened? Go-chan recounted, 2 years ago, the third young master called the fourth young master's mother a whore. At that time, he was beaten to a pulp. Kyung-woon replied nonchalantly, laughing out loud, "The fourth young master is quite gentle, isn't he?" He was surprised. "Why do you say that?" He explained, "He still let that third young master keep all his limbs." "Isn't that too gentle?" Go-chan urged, "Let's get out of here before we run into trouble." Kyung-woon obeyed. All right. The fourth young master remained engrossed in practicing martial arts. At the same time, in another house inside the master's room, coins were strung together by a thread. The old man was setting up a formation around the master's body. Strange purple-black veins were clearly visible on the master's body. The old man observed and thought to himself, "I thought this was a sign of drug addiction, but there is clearly a killing aura enveloping him. If it were a normal person, they would have been consumed by it long ago. To be able to endure up to this point, he is truly a master of great depth, but it has been far too long. His survival rate is only about 50%. The old sorcerer muttered as he set up the ritual calculating the odds. I'll just do the job I was assigned. Whether he lives or dies is none of my concern, Master Mitchin said, lifting his red brush. He began to draw the charms, whispering as he worked, "By the power of the 8 heavenly kings may the demons be revealed and the soul turn toward the Buddha. In this transient world let all wicked spirits be bound. I pray to spread the Dharma and help them escape their suffering." Mitchin chanted, launching the charm. It flew straight toward the master's chest, glowing brilliantly as he unleashed his magic to purge the demonic affliction. The master groaned softly while the sorcerer continued channeling the majestic power of the bodhisattva. The room glowed with pure gold, and the sound of iron chains clanging echoed through the air. 4 great water spirits rose as the bodhisattva's divine fortress stood firm, but as the toxic energy spilled from the charm, the master let out a cry of agony. The old man thought, "Damn it, his killing intent is too strong." He continued his incantations, seeking protection from the Dharma, while the master screamed in pain, his eyes turning bloodshot from the power of the guardians. Suddenly, one of the strings the old man had set up around the room snapped. Mitchin froze in terror. Someone was sneaking in. Was it the Lady Nunta? If this is interrupted, it's all over. The master's body erupted with purple light, blasting the old man away. He crashed to the ground just as Jing-Yun and Go-Chan stepped inside. What's going on? He shouted, "Master, are you okay?" The old man groaned, and the man on the bed asked, "Who is that? Is that the master?" Jing-Yun whispered. Mu Jing-Yun bowed. "I have come to pay my respects, father." The old man and his companion stood there stunned. Jing-Yun looked straight at the master with a smile. That was my greeting for him. A voice roared with absolute fury. "Get out of here!" An elder in traditional robes shouted. "Even if you are the young master, get out of here right now!" "Did the lady not tell you anything?" The man in blue robes retorted with seething anger. "Who do you think you are to order us around?" A young man nearby raised his hand to his chin, his eyes sharp and full of thought. The man on the bed groaned in pain. The elder fumed. "Your killing intent has ruined all my hard work. That killing intent will only make his condition worse," Go-Chan asked, surprised. "Killing intent? Are you an alchemist?" The old sorcerer suddenly barked, "Get out!" He was frantic. "Please get out of here!" What if something happens now? The man on the bed looked as if he had swallowed something vile. All 3 were shocked by the sight. The mysterious illness had completely taken over the master's body. His eyes were glowing deep red. Blue and purple veins appeared crisscrossing all over his skin as he began to thrash violently. Mitchin yelled, his voice strained, "The 2 of you help me pin him down!" "Don't let him break the threads," Go-Chan asked, startled. "Pin him down." The sorcerer urged him. "Hurry!" All 3 were terrified as the master emitted a monstrous dark aura. With his blood-red eyes, the master struggled, but Jing-Yun and Go-Chan teamed up to hold him down so Mitchin could finish his ritual. "This charm will suppress the evil spirit, heal the sickness, and devour the malice." After being restrained, the man screamed in absolute agony. Suddenly, he grabbed the guard, Go-Chan's arm causing him to panic. He turned to look, and saw it was the very man they had been suppressing. He grabbed Go-Chan's hand and twisted it, snapping the bone. "Go!" Chan shrieked in pain. Mitchin gasped, "He's suddenly become so strong." As Go-Chan reeled in shock, the old man warned him, "Wait, you'll be in danger too if that dark energy spreads to you." He stammered in panic, "What, I'll be infected too?" "Why are you telling me this now?" Go-Chan trembled as the dark energy began to spread to him. "He's lunging at us!" The young man quickly drew his sword with an icy expression, and Mu Jing-Yun decisively slashed off the arm of the man they were suppressing. Go-Chan was stunned by his actions. Jing-Yun's expression didn't change at all, while the old sorcerer shared Go-Chan's look of shock. Suddenly, a voice caught Jing-Yun's attention. "What are you doing?" He smiled coldly, filled with killing intent. "Go!" Chan tried to stop Jing-Yun. Are you not going to stop?" It was as if he didn't hear him. He slashed again, severing the arm completely. Go-Chan looked at the scene in horror. This lunatic. He cut off the master's arm. The severed arm hit the ground. A charm was quickly slapped onto the wound. "Go!" Chan scrambled to save the master. "I have to stop the bleeding first." Meanwhile, the elder was panicking over the severed limb. "This is a mess," the old man thought, his face turning pale. "Not only did I fail the mission, but the master has lost his arm. I need to get out of here before I'm punished." "Clean up a bit and get out of here," Suddenly a sword was pressed against his throat. Jing Yun asked calmly, "Is this what you wanted?" Go-chan was surprised, "Young master," but he gestured for silence. Jing Yun asked firmly, "Is this the reason the master is sick?" The elder replied calmly, "Can't you see it for yourself? This is what is taking over his body, and it's not over yet. He could still die." He shouted, "There's no time to worry about this. Or do you want the master to die too?" He raised an eyebrow, and the elder's face went pale. "Oh no." Jing Yun smiled and said, "Who wants the master dead?" He continued to press. "Who hired you?" Mitchin stammered, It's a misunderstanding." He threatened him, "Oh, my blade is even closer to your throat now. I think being honest is your only option if you want to live." Mitchin finally confessed with a trembling voice, The great lady said it wasn't necessary to save the master's life." Jing Yun and Go-chan were stunned. "The great lady said it wasn't necessary to save him?" he asked suspiciously. "A secret letter with the master's official seal. Go." Chan broke into a cold sweat. "Damn it, she's gone too far. If we don't go there, the first young master will inherit the title," he said frantically to young master Qin Van. "We must save him right now." Go-chan thought to himself that he had to stop the first young master from becoming the head of the family. He continued, "Otherwise the first lady will kill him." Mok Qin Van pondered and replied, "That makes sense. I've already ruined her plans." The elder said cleverly, "Young master, I can save the clan leader. I will do it at any cost." He replied coldly, "No need for that, just do it," Ha-an said happily. "Find the location of the secret letter and the seal. Do it." Both Go-chan and Missin could not hide their astonishment. The elder had previously declared that if they continued the ritual, the clan leader's life would be in danger, but he was still insistently urging them on. "Elder, hurry up!" Deep down, the elder thought to himself that he must have lost his mind and didn't know what kind of trick he was pulling, but he still had to comply. The space suddenly fell into silence. Both of them focused on watching Missin manipulating the puppet. A voice suddenly rang out, "What is that?" The elder immediately explained, "This is a substitute. If the clan leader comes into contact with the evil energy again, he will die instantly, so we must attach this to him to trick the evil energy into thinking it is the clan leader." The old man held the string in one hand and gripped the talisman in the other, preparing to perform the magic. He began to chant, "Heaven and earth evolve the great tribulation. Body and soul travel the first seal. The 6 perceptions open the enlightenment fruit. The 5 wisdoms are the indestructible support deities and demons. Cannot violate this law, manifest quickly." Suddenly from the man's severed arm, another arm sprouted out and grabbed the puppet. The man lying on the bed suddenly opened his eyes wide and screamed violently. Qin Van and Go-chan were both stunned. Missin continued to chant, "The 5 wisdoms are the indestructible support deities and demons cannot violate this law. Manifest quickly." The old man frowned. The killing intent was radiating too strongly. "If this continues, the evil energy will be completely unleashed." He thought to himself, "He isn't listening to my warnings, what should I do?" Suddenly an idea flashed through the old man's mind. He smirked maliciously. He turned to Qin Van and said he would limit the evil energy, but then cleverly questioned his presence. Understanding the hint. Go-chan voluntarily left the room because he thought he shouldn't keep listening to classified matters, saying, "I humbly ask to take my leave for a moment." As soon as the door closed, the old man declared firmly, "I'm starting." The elder began the ritual again. "I'm starting. Heaven and earth evolve the great tribulation. Body and soul travel the first seal. The 6 perceptions open the enlightenment fruit. The 5 wisdoms are the indestructible support deities and demons cannot violate this law, manifest quickly." Suddenly an eerie voice spoke up from inside the man's body. "Who dares to summon me?" Missin thought to himself, "It's over." Then he hurriedly asked the evil energy residing in the man, "What do you want?" He forced, "This law manifest quickly. Tell me where the clan leader's secret letter and seal are hidden." The evil energy roared in anger and replied, "The underground medicine room right behind the front stone door." Min Van and Missin were both stunned. Behind the front stone door, in the cellar under the medicine room. Suddenly the arm grabbing the puppet glowed brilliantly and crushed the puppet to pieces. Missin hurriedly urged Qin Van, "Cut the string immediately." He asked back, astonished, "The string?" The elder continued, "The evil energy is taking over the clan leader's body. Hurry up." The young man did not hesitate, swinging his sword to cut the string, and the arm fell off. Then more arms grew from there, grabbing his legs. He turned back, looking full of questions. Kinvan's gaze at the old sorcerer showed a hint of surprise. Misson wore a wicked smile. The arms began to crawl up to his face. The sound of swallowing saliva in fear echoed hauntingly. Misson stuck the talisman onto Kinvan's forehead. Kinvan thought, "An evil spirit boiling with the desire to kill, it's out of control. It's only a matter of time." Luckily, the evil spirit had transferred to him. The old man told himself he had completed the mission and eliminated the obstacle. At the same time, he planned to blame everything on him, making him bear all the consequences. He stood deep in thought, his face expressionless. It seemed the evil spirit in his heart wanted to speak. "You dare!" it roared angrily. "You dare use this puppet to deceive me! I won't forgive you! It was you, the one who set me up! You're quite something, aren't you?" "Very well." His body floated up and gradually vanished. Consciously, the evil spirit threatened, "I will take over your body instead of that old man's. You will be trapped in your own mind forever, sinking into an eternal sleep." Switching scenes back to the time when Kinvan was still in the forest. The scenery here is truly poetic. The small stream babbled along. He suspiciously asked himself, "Isn't this the place I often visit to fetch water?" The birds chirped. The stream murmured, a truly peaceful mountain area. He knew every corner of this place by heart. Kinvan looked around. He had been here so many times that even if he wanted to forget, he couldn't. He sat down to scoop water from the stream, but even though it was extremely familiar, he didn't know why a strange feeling rose in his heart today. He carried the bucket of water back, wondering where this feeling of unease came from, as if he had just forgotten something, but extremely important. He pondered without a word. Suddenly he discovered that the other side of the forest was burning fiercely. Kinvan hurriedly remembered, "Isn't that the direction of my home?" He leapt and ran as fast as he could, dropping the bucket of water in his hand, shouting, "Grandfather!" He rushed like the wind, his breath heavy. He gritted his teeth silently, praying, "Please, grandfather, be safe." His back gradually disappeared in the direction of the house. His mind was only focused on his grandfather. When he arrived at the house, he cried out frantically, "Grandfather!" His pupils contracted in horror at the scene unfolding before his eyes. He threw the basket off his back and rushed to the side of his grandfather lying there. His whole body was covered in blood. Kinvan hurriedly helped him up, his voice trembling. "Grandfather, grandfather, wake up." He yelled in anger, No, this can't be happening." Who did this?" "I'm mourning, Grandpa. You can't just leave me like this." "I still remember those peaceful days with you, when you'd pat my head and tell me that one day I'd finally understand what your presence truly meant. Now only the image of me holding his body and sobbing remains, realizing just how much this precious person meant to me." "So that's it." The evil spirit stepped out from behind him, raising a hand with a smug tone. "So this is your deepest desire." He channeled his dark energy seeping into my mind. The sensation spread to my limbs as the voice of my late grandfather echoed, "What are you standing there spacing out for?" Then it crawled into my eyes. The scene suddenly shifted back to the time before the house caught fire. When Grandpa was still alive, he called out, "Come here and give me a hand. Stop moping around." I was stunned. I looked at him dumbfounded and hurriedly asked, "Grandpa, what happened?" The evil spirit began to spread across my face, taking over my mind. I rushed over and hugged his neck tightly, crying out, startling him until he dropped the water bucket. "Oh!" I squeezed him tighter. Grandpa hurriedly tried to stop me. "Hey, careful. You'll make me fall." "What's wrong with you?" I replied hesitantly. "Because of you." Tears streamed down my cheeks, swearing to myself I wouldn't lose him ever again, because he was the only reason someone who should have been dead was still existing. He gently patted my head, soothing me. "Why are you acting like this all of a sudden?" Behind us, the evil spirit enjoyed the scene with satisfaction. He smirked. "That's it?" "Exactly like that. Those precious past memories, the love that was lost, and endless happiness." The memories continued to play, the two of us talking while he worked. I asked, "Grandpa, why did you name me Integrity?" The evil spirit whispered from behind, "Just stay by his side forever. Like that. You will never have to lose anything." Suddenly I glanced behind me, shocked, unable to believe my eyes. "What?" I grabbed his face. It was so fast he couldn't react. With one hand gripping his throat and the other clutching his face, I growled, "Seeing you makes me think of something terrifying." He was stunned. "No way can he see me. My voice was full of rage, my grip tightening even harder. "How annoying! How dare you toy with my grandfather's image!" he shrieked in pain. I continued seething with hatred. "And you were wrong." I gritted my teeth. "Whether it's the desire for happiness or revenge, you should have shown me something. Better than using my grandfather as a plaything," I roared. "I should be tearing you apart for killing my grandfather." His eyes lit up. He thought that idea was seeping deep into my subconscious. Following the flow of the evil spirit's thoughts, a primitive desire, a pure, raw hunger for killing began to emerge. An evil intention. So evil that even the souls of the dead would shy away. The hand I had on his face was also being consumed by the evil spirit. I squeezed madly and he panicked. "No way! Is this something a living being can possess?" But something was holding back that brutal urge to kill. What was it? In my mind, Grandpa's voice spoke up. "You're asking why I chose that name." His body gradually faded. He continued, "You are a special child. I hoped you would grow up to be a good, righteous person. That is why I chose integrity for your name. Just as the name implies live honestly and never stray from your path. That is why I have always prayed you would grow up to be a man of integrity." I let go. The evil spirit collapsed frantically, trying to escape. "I have to run." I grabbed my sickle and chased after him. The evil spirit was terrified. "This guy is insane. I have to hide deep in his subconscious." I lunged, wanting to finish him off. He fled to a safe place, thinking to himself, "Thank goodness I got deep inside his body. Just need to carefully advance into his subconscious." He stepped into a lush green field. The sky was clear sunlight shining down on a quiet meadow. A lone figure stood tall in the middle of that vast blue space. A door. He stood at the head of the field. This is his deepest subconscious. He looked at the door suspiciously. A door? He noticed a talisman pasted on the door. A seal. This guy. Could his memories be imprisoned here? Why he reached out to touch the doorknob? It doesn't matter, I just need to open this door. I will completely take over his consciousness from the inside. Suddenly, his arm began to dissolve. He panicked. "What is this?" Black smoke spread everywhere. He turned to look around. His feet began to sink deep into the field as black roots crawled up his body. Is he taking me over instead? "Grandpa." He struggled. "Stop! If this keeps up, I'll be swallowed." He reached out begging for help, but every struggle was futile. He was completely swallowed by me. Kin Van suddenly woke up sitting in his original position. The talisman on him glowed with a purple light. Missin turned back, startled, his expression a mix of rage and shock. "No way." He grabbed the talisman on his forehead, tore it off, and stood up. Black roots from his hands dug deep into the ground, enveloping his form until a ghost appeared right behind him. Kin Van turned his head to look, then called out, "Matang Knight has fallen." Something's not right, Miseo-tan thought, clasping his hands together at the Maki mansion and sighing. He reminisced about the past, Lord Makinjian. He was a true hero. I respected him deeply and believed he would never do anything wrong. I first met him 19 years ago while I was clearing out pirates. Back then I was a renowned martial artist. The Lord and I worked together to drive off the pirates, and afterwards I became the mansion's inner master, swearing loyalty to him. He looked up at the sky and sighed, his face filled with contemplation. Mai Seotan looked toward the main mansion, wondering, but why did things end up like this? He remembered Lady Seok, a sharp-witted woman holding a fan to cover half her face. "Inner master, do you truly believe that lowly brat deserves to be the master of the mansion? Makim, for the future of the Maki mansion, you must leave this place. Until the sorcerer used his magic to find the seal and the secret letter. For the sake of the mansion's peace, I obeyed, but my heart was boiling with anger. That sorcerer is definitely a fraud. He probably used dark magic to threaten the Lord." Suddenly he stood up and roared, "Damn it, I can't just stand by." He reminded himself that this went completely against the oath of loyalty he had sworn to the Lord. Miseo-tan gripped his sword and marched aggressively toward the main mansion. "I'll go in there and check for sure." Missin broke into a cold sweat, thinking in terror, "This isn't just a regular vengeful spirit." Kin Van stood next to Ma Tang with an ice-cold expression. A surging killing intent radiated toward Missin. Alarm bells rang in the old man's head. "That's a high-level evil spirit." Kin Van curled his lip and called out to the spirit standing beside him. "Ma Tang!" He waved his hand, ordering it to charge at Missin, coldly commanding, "Destroy that sorcerer!" The old man panicked, cold sweat pouring down like rain. Missen hurriedly waved his hands to perform magic, muttering under his breath, pouring all his strength into creating a crimson energy shield to block Ma Tang's powerful fist. Ma Tang didn't hesitate, reaching out to crush the glowing golden light. Missen was struck with total shock, thinking to himself, He can actually control an evil spirit. The battle between Missen and Ma Tang was incredibly fierce. The old man still couldn't believe his eyes, screaming in his mind, impossible. It's a vengeful spirit, an embodiment of evil. How could it obey the commands of someone else? Ma Tang's arm tore through Missen's shield, catching the old man completely off guard. A fatal blow from Ma Tang struck him, sending him flying backward to crash onto the ground. Missen struggled to stand, leaning against the wall for balance, panting heavily. Ma Tang remained floating in midair, a gruesome grin on its face, killing intent swirling around its body. Panic-stricken. Missen turned one hand, bracing against the wall, while the other fumbled for the sword at his waist, trembling as he cried out, "No!" He drew his sword to threaten it, but Ma Tang silently advanced. He screamed a warning, "Don't come any closer!" Suddenly Ma Tang opened its mouth wide and pitch-black energy poured out in a torrent. Missen froze, staring in sheer horror directly into Ma Tang's mouth. From within it, countless eerie hands stretched out one after another. Even the skull necklace around its neck began sprouting similar hands. Those hands lunged forward. They grabbed Missen, making him scream in terror as he was dragged away by the cluster of hands. Desperate, he begged, "Help save me, please! I beg you, please spare me, I'll do anything!" Kinvan stood with his arms crossed, watching the scene. He answered calmly, "I don't need it." Missen paused, stammering, If it's because I tricked you." He smiled slightly. "No, it's not because of that." Kinvan sat down in front of him with a cold, hollow smile, his voice icy, leaving the old man stunned. "Don't you know about the seal and the secret letter?" Missen gritted his teeth, tears welling up. His hands dug deep into the ground, and as Ma Tang dragged him, his skin tore and bled. He realized in agony, this guy. From the very beginning, he wanted me dead. Kinvan casually looked toward the door and called out, "Go-chan, come in." Kinvan walked in first, followed by Gohan. The scene before him left him speechless. It's over." On the floor lay Missen's corpse, his limbs twisted, eyes wide and haunting, as if he had just experienced the most horrific moment of his life. Go-chan asked, trembling, Is he dead?" "So," Kinvan bent down to pick up the sword, saying coldly, "If you have questions, leave them for later." "Can you carry this body?" he asked, stunned. "What?" Kinvan stood up, swinging the sword in his hand, and said, "I'll make it look like this." Afterward, he swung his sword, smashing cabinets and ceramic vases, saying as he worked, "This sorcerer went crazy and started swinging his sword around wildly. He even severed the Lord's hand." Kinvan continued, "We happened to witness the scene and managed to stop him just in time. Meanwhile, Go-chan just grabbed Missen's arm, saying nothing. Go-chan spoke up. "Are you planning to cover up the truth?" Kinvan stopped his work and turned his head to look at him. "That's right. Is there a problem?" Gothan worriedly thought to himself, "That sounds plausible, but will they actually believe it?" "The headmistress isn't easily fooled," he whispered, voicing his concerns. "She won't buy that excuse. Young master doing this will only make everyone more suspicious of you." Kinvan's face darkened as he stood with his hands on his hips in the middle of the chaotic room. "Is it that obvious?" Go Trang argued. "Even if you say he went mad, the headmistress was the one who hired him. She won't ever accept that." Kinvan brought a hand to his mouth, pondered for a moment, and said, "I see. Then I guess I'll have to stage this a bit more convincingly," he said, switching the sword to his other hand. "How about this?" Go Trang was flustered. "Young master, you—" Kinvan gave a cold, cruel smirk, plunged the sword into his own thigh, and said he cut the clan master's hand and even tried to kill his son. Watching the scene, Go Trang gasped, "What?" Kinvan dropped the bloodied sword to the floor and said calmly, "How about now?" Kinvan wiped sweat from his face with his blood-stained hand, his expression wild. "Am I convincing enough now?" Go-chan was horrified by this unthinkable recklessness. He stared at Kinvan, wondering if he was really this determined. Even if it was just a cover, self-inflicting a wound was terrifying. Go-chan rolled up his sleeves and approached. "Let me stop the bleeding for you." Kinvan blocked him, sitting on an overturned cabinet. He held the bleeding wound. "Just leave it there. If my face is this pale, it'll be easier to convince them." Go-chan thought in horror that the word terrifying wasn't enough, it was truly chilling. He definitely never wanted to be this man's enemy. Just then the door burst open. Miezeo looked inside, stunned. Go-chan spoke up anxiously. "Master, master!" Miezeo's brow furrowed, sweat dripping as he took in the scene. Microsoft glanced toward Clan Master Mach and John, who was lying on the bed, while Michelin was kneeling on the floor in front of the bed, his face full of fury as he gritted his teeth. You bastard, what have you done?" Go-chan quickly tried to explain. "Master, this is all just a misunderstanding." Qin Van spoke up weakly. "Master." He staggered to his feet, holding out his bloody hand, pretending to be in pain. Hurry and go check on the clan master!" Suddenly, Qin Van collapsed to the ground, leaving the other two in shock. Mizuo grabbed Go-chan and demanded loudly, "What the hell just happened here?" "Why are you two young masters here?" Go-chan stammered. It's because... Go-chan frowned as he looked at Qin Van, who was lying on the floor with a slight smirk on his face. Go-chan cursed internally. "He's smiling, that bastard. He's acting." In the pharmacy, bundles of ingredients were hung in rows on bamboo poles and wooden cabinets were stuffed with dried herbs. Qin Van lay there, eyes closed, resting. The scent of herbs made him feel much better. He recalled the clan master's words in the cellar behind the stone door. He closed his eyes and smiled. "I even made it to the place the clan master mentioned. How lucky." Go-chan, with his arm bandaged, walked into the pharmacy while people were bustling about getting their medicine. Qin Van's thoughts continued. "The secret letter and the seal, I'll go check them at night. There are too many people around now." Go-chan opened the door to the room where Qin Van was recuperating. "Young master, it's me." Qin Van sat up abruptly, his voice accusing. "You're late." Go-chan frowned, annoyed. He didn't answer, but silently rummaged through his pockets. He pulled out 2 books and said, "These are the ones the sorcerer owned just as you requested." Qin Van asked, "Only these 2 left?" Go-trang replied, "I only managed to grab these 2. Before they burned the rest." Qin Van held the 2 books in his hands, looking at Go-trang. "Burned," Go-trang recalled, hiding in the corner, watching the maids and guards burning the sorcerer's belongings. "They're burning all of the sorcerer's things. They're probably trying to destroy the evidence." Qin Van looked at the books and thought to himself, "I see." He stared at them with slight disappointment. The original summary of the Yin-Yang sect by the master and the first draft of the strange records. Are these the only things left? Qin Van closed his eyes and smiled. "You did well." Seeing Go-chan still looking at him with confusion, he asked, "What's wrong?" Go-chan replied, "Nothing. I was just wondering why you read these things." Qin Van pointed toward the window. "Do you see anything out there?" Go-chan looked in the direction of his finger, bewildered. "Huh!" Go-chan stared blankly out the window. "Out there!" Go-chan didn't seem to see anything. A demonic monk was floating outside the window. "Nothing at all." Qin Van opened the book and read, speaking calmly, while Go-chan was in total confusion. "That is the reason I wanted to find it." Go-chan was dazed. What is going on? An argument outside startled both of them, causing them to look toward the door. Qin Van tucked the book into his chest pocket in a flash. 2 shadows appeared. A man's voice sounded panicked. "My lady, the young master is still resting." Immediately, a woman's stern voice commanded, "Move aside." The door suddenly burst open. Lady Seok strode inside, her voice dropping into a deadly, menacing tone. "We need to have a talk." Qin Van stared straight at her, his expression entirely devoid of emotion. Lady Seok used her fan to cover half her face, repeating, "Let's talk." Just then, Go-chan hurried to offer a formal greeting, drawing everyone's attention. "Greetings, head lady." Qin Van fell into a contemplative silence, his gaze sharp and probing. "So this is her." Observing the fury on Lady Seok's face, Qin Van silently guessed, one of the Seok clan. Lady Seok. He recalled the warnings from the guard cam who had listed her as one of the top-tier threats. She came from a martial arts family possessing great skill, and more importantly, a devious nature. He remembered the warning to be even more vigilant against her than the eldest son. He raised his hands in a formal bow. "Greetings, my lady." He remained in the bowing posture, ignoring the stares of the crowd, and continued, "Please forgive me, my lady, but due to my leg injury, I cannot stand to welcome you properly." Lady Seok frowned while Go-chan looked on anxiously, thinking, he's being far more cordial than I expected. "I hope he can get through this without giving himself away." Lady Seok asked coldly, "I didn't come here to hear your greetings." Qin Van looked up and asked, "Oh, is that so? Suddenly, Lady Siuk swung her fan hard, slamming it directly into Kinvan's wound without warning. Both Go-chan and Kinvan were stunned by her cruelty. Kinvan cried out in pain. "Go!" Chan couldn't hide his panic. Huang, standing nearby, drew his sword and pointed it straight at Go-chan's neck, his face cold and icy as he ordered the sharp blade still pressed against the man's throat. "Stay still." Lady Siuk laughed coldly, speaking nonchalantly. "Seems like you're actually in pain. Must be hard, right?" She leaned her face close to Kinvan's, her eyes malicious as she smirked. "You even had to cut your own flesh to make your lies more convincing." Kinvan glared at her as she continued. "You managed to fool the head of the house quite well, but you forgot one thing." Lady Siuk brought the fan close to Kinvan's silent face, mocking him. "A true shaman will never be possessed by spirits during a ritual." She laughed loudly, her hand still gripping the fan, acting as if she had lost her mind. Lady Siuk suddenly slapped Kinvan across the face. "How dare you try to belittle me with such half-baked lies?" The force of the slap sent Kinvan flying into the window frame, his head striking the door hard. "Go!" Chan anxiously called out, "Young master," while Go-chan stood frozen in panic. Lady Siuk waved her hand. Her voice full of threats, she said, "I won't say this again. Just what exactly do you already know?" Kinvan sat on the ground, head bowed in silence. Suddenly, he burst into laughter. The laughter grew louder and louder, leaving Lady Siuk and Go-chan looking at him in confusion. Kinvan's voice began to warp, sounding manic and deranged. Lady Siuk was startled. "Have you lost your mind?" Kinvan didn't stop laughing. The sound cut off abruptly, but a ghostly smile remained on his lips. His face twisted as he spoke. "Ma Tang, you're still standing outside the window, aren't you?" "Why can no one else see you?" Ma Tang glided from outside the window, rushing right past Lady Siuk. Kinvan slowly stood up. She looked around frantically, asking with anxiety, "What just flew past?" Ma Tang grabbed the maid So Hua by the throat, causing her to scream in pain. Everyone turned at once. Lady Siuk was stunned, the horrific image of Missen flashing through her mind. Kinvan spoke up suddenly from right behind her back, making her jump as she turned around. "The secret letter and the seal. Aren't those the two things you want?" Dark energy enveloped So Hua, causing her to writhe in agony. Huang intended to reach out to help, but only received a cold look from Kinvan. Then instead of threatening, "You should come to me to negotiate." Lady Siuk gritted her teeth and frowned. "You—" Kinvan dragged his injured leg toward her. "Believe it or not, that's up to you. Honestly, I never wanted to become the master of the clan." He leaned close to her face, causing her to panic. "Your son isn't the only one who covets the position of clan master." Kinvan's voice was cold and threatening. "Because you treated me like this, I have no choice but to seek out the second brother." Hearing this, she trembled, speechless. He continued, stirring her memories. "The fourth brother is also quite skilled in martial arts, isn't he?" Kinvan continued to twist the knife into her fears. "He and I have had our differences. If I hand the secret letter to him to reconcile, that would be quite the move, wouldn't it?" Lady Siuk collapsed to the ground. Kinvan reminded her, "Do you understand now? You are no longer the one holding the upper hand." Outside the window, the night was silent and still, the cold night breeze echoing. Kinvan glanced at Lady Siuk, who was trembling and clinging to the bed to keep from falling. "Take care of your health." In another mansion, an angry voice rang out in Phuoc Hoa Duong, Lady Siuk's residence. Inside, Lady Siuk was wildly smashing things, throwing even a chair at some vases. She stomped on the broken chair, screaming, "How dare he!" She smashed everything in sight, muttering, "How dare he! How dare he! How dare he!" Hoang hurried over to console her. "My lady, please calm down." Lady Siuk snapped around, silencing Huang. "Calm down. You think I can possibly be calm? That brat dared to snatch the prize right from under my nose." She clutched her head in thought. Damn it. I was too careless, thinking he was just an idiot. I thought a few threats would make him spill everything. I never expected him to change so suddenly, as if he had become an entirely different person. She sat in deep thought, knocking over a cabinet, when she suddenly realized something. She brought her hand to her forehead. Could it be, all this time he's been hiding his true self? Lady Siuk recalled images of Kinvan from childhood to adulthood. People always praised him for being smart, but after his mother died and his maternal family weakened, perhaps he changed to protect himself. Lady Siuk slammed her hand on the table, gritting her teeth. I shouldn't have underestimated him like this. Huang spoke up to reassure her. Let me kill him before he can cause any trouble, she said sternly. No, if the secret letter falls into someone else's hands, that would be even worse. Huang hesitated. Then, she closed her eyes. But I won't let it drag me down with it. She opened her eyes, gazing into the distance in silence. Lady Zayok commanded, Notify the Phoenix Palace of the sorcerer Mitsubishi's death. It was like a bolt of lightning striking right beside him. The Phoenix Palace, Huang gasped in horror. Isn't that where the sorcerer Mitsubishi lived? Lady Zayok's gaze turned cold and spiteful. Ryonggun, I won't let things go your way. Late at night in the pharmacy, a voice echoes through the empty room as the master summarizes the original texts of the yin-yang sect when a person dies and turns into a vengeful spirit due to deep resentment. Remaining calm, Qin Van sits on the floor with a flickering oil lamp casting light onto the pages. Their power depends on many factors. He continues to flip through the book in the stillness. One page reads the first is a red spirit, a soul bound to a specific location whose power only causes chills or goosebumps. The second is a possessing spirit, which attaches to a human body causing lethargy and sickness. The third is an imperial spirit, an extremely dangerous type of soul that must be exterminated. He reads intently, realizing a true imperial spirit can actually take a life. Suddenly, the demonic monk appears, taking Qin Van by surprise. Qin Van asks if he has found what he was looking for. The demonic monk bows respectfully, and at this moment, Qin Van thinks to himself, so this demonic monk is actually an imperial spirit. Qin Van reaches out to rummage through the medicine cabinets, searching for dried herbs capable of creating a secret mechanism leading underground, thinking to himself that this demonic monk is truly useful for scouting. He recalls the scene of the demonic monk choking Zoa Hoa, then muses that his power seems useless against the CEO lady, which is why he had to control the servant behind her. He pulls open a medicine drawer and tells himself, but it still worked on the guard Go-chan. Just then, a mysterious door suddenly appears right behind the medicine cabinets. Qin Van steps into the room behind it, calculating that the CEO lady is, after all, a top-tier martial artist. So, this technique definitely wouldn't be effective against the guards, because they are at the same level as her. He flips through the next pages to observe a calculated smirk playing on his lips. He looks at the book and tells himself it's better if I possess a more powerful spirit. According to the records, the fourth is a 0-1 malignant spirit that has existed for 10 decades. Possessing the ability to manipulate the environment and create mesmerizing illusions, the book records extremely dangerous warnings emphasizing the need to exercise the wooden mirror. Van closes the book. All right. He picks up the lamp with confidence and heads toward the stairs leading down. Let's go. He starts descending, determined to find the secret letter and the seal. Qin Van steps firmly down each stair. So deep. He lowers the lantern to peer into the pitch-black darkness below. He never expected someone to dig this deep, just to hide a secret letter and a seal. He continues downward, the light illuminating the path. This thing must be extremely valuable. No wonder that bunch is fighting so madly for it. I lose nothing by taking them for myself. He ponders the fact that the demonic monk's power couldn't shake the guard. Now he understands clearly that the demonic monk's technique is completely useless against that guy. Need to find more trump cards to deal with this. Reaching the bottom, the light sweeps over a door. Is it here? He pushes the door open and enters. Inside is a viewing platform. With 4 stone doors above and the pharmacy area below, his gaze focuses on the 4th stone door. Qin Van pushes the stone door open to observe the space inside. Inside is a deep, pitch-black cave. It seems I still have to venture even further. Qin Van holds the lantern, turns to look ahead and wonders if he should keep going. His foot suddenly hits a mechanism, making it sink. Immediately, a giant boulder crashes down from above. He leaps up to avoid the danger. In the nick of time, he repeatedly dodges flying stone fragments. Unexpectedly, this place is riddled with traps. From deep in the cave, strange rays of light shoot rapidly toward him. Arrows fire incessantly toward mock Qin Van. Luckily, he manages to dodge them in time. The volleys of arrows don't stop, and he quickly uses the lamp in his hand to deflect them. Just then, an arrow flies straight at his face. He quickly uses the lantern to block it. Seeing the arrow thud into the lantern, he smirks. A wooden log suddenly flies toward him. Only then does he realize this is the true test. Qin Van plants his hand and leaps over the log deep underground in a cave filled with deadly traps. Just how valuable is this secret letter? He watches the log smash into a rock, shattering it. Or is there something else hidden in this trap-filled cave? Scattered on the ground are talismans. It seems they are even more important. Suddenly, countless weapons fall from above his head. He leaps up laughing. Well, let's see about this. Kinvan lands, one hand touching the ground. He lets out a breath, biting the lamp in his mouth. Leaving the pile of weapons stacked behind him, he picks up the lamp and looks ahead. It's a vast room made of wood. Finally, he arrives. He shines the light to examine his surroundings. He really didn't expect this place to be built entirely of wood. Every structure here is arranged symmetrically. He observes and guesses this place looks just like a training room. I wonder if anyone has ever trained here before. Kinvan leisurely walks to the table placed in the center. On it is a wooden box. Kinvan opens the wooden box. Found it. Inside are 2 books, Human Wood Transformation Technique and Human Wood Sword Skill. Recalling what Gochan had told him, he takes both and tucks them into his shirt. Gochan once said the secret letter was divided into 2, one part about sword skills, and one part about cultivation techniques. I will take both of these. Done, he intends to turn and leave. But this whole huge cave, just to store 2 books, seems strange. He notices a wooden chest and curiously walks over to see what it is. Kinvan widens his eyes, observing the chest. It looks extremely heavy and unusual. There are many scratches around the wooden chest, proving it had been dragged somewhere else. He tries using his strength to push the chest away, so it was placed there to hide something. He looks down at the space where the chest had just been pushed. I knew it. Underneath is a small, secret compartment sealed with 4 talismans lying on the floor. He sits down, removes the talismans, and finds a wooden box. A box also sealed with charms. Kinvan picks up the wooden box and places it on the floor. Sealed with a charm, huh? He slowly peels the talisman off the box, and a surge of ominous energy emanates from it. The thing that old geezer wanted to hide definitely isn't just some secret letter. The moment he opens the box, the lamp in his hand suddenly flickers out. He widens his eyes in surprise. Huh? Why did the light go out? He stands up with his box squinting as he looks inside. He pulls out the contents. It's a book bound in human skin tied shut with a red cord. This isn't an ordinary book. From the scent to the leather binding, it radiates a sinister aura. Human skin. Kinvan smiles, intrigued. As he stares at the book, a rapid rhythmic drumbeat echoes out. The surroundings become incredibly loud and lively. That's it, he cheers excitedly. He is the second young master, Mok Eunbaeong. He raises his wine cup, stretching as he looks out the window. Yes, this is what fun is all about. The main hall of the shogunate looks magnificent today. Eunbaeong smiles smugly. This must be because I'm about to attain the position of shogun. He glances at the person standing behind him and says, It's all thanks to your support. He spreads his arms, then turns around to face the Crimson Guard under the dark night sky. Apologies for making you wait this long. Mok Eunbaeong takes a sip of wine, eyes the Crimson Guard, and speaks. I intended to prepare a more lavish banquet for you, but my father hasn't recovered yet. This reception will have to serve as a proper show of respect. He signals for the Crimson Guard to enter. All right, let's head inside. Yes, young master. The pipa players and drummers quickly follow behind. He strokes his chin, a smug smile on his face. So about that bastard Mokdaong. Has he really lost all his martial arts skills? The guard ponders, remembering the corpse of Mokdaong. Yes, that person is dead, and the imposter currently hasn't learned a single combat skill. I'm not lying, he thinks to himself, recalling the man's face. Besides, I don't intend to expose him as a fake. If it gets out that I failed to protect the young master, I'll be in serious trouble. I suppose he made that offer for a reason. Having guessed his thoughts, the Crimson Guard grins. Indeed, but things certainly won't go his way. The guard speaks with a firm tone. Currently, Mokdaong cannot use any martial arts. I will personally take his head to prove my loyalty to the second young master. Eunbaeong laughs gleefully. What a fool. He was already useless, and now that his martial arts are gone, he'll never be able to contest the title. He bursts into laughter. All right, then. Perhaps I should feel lucky to have someone as capable as you working for me. He asks curiously. Oh, right, I'm still wondering what exactly was the cause of him losing his martial arts. If it was your mistake, I'm willing to overlook it. Everyone makes a slip-up sometimes. The Crimson Guard bows, refusing. My apologies, sir, but I cannot disclose that at the moment. If this were to get out, I would be the one cleaning up the mess for you, the Crimson Guard thinks, offering flattery that makes Mok Eunbaeong laugh and trust him. Well, if you won't say, It doesn't hurt me either way. Fine, I trust you. After all, you are... He rests his chin on his hand, mocking him. Also an assassin from that pathetic, filthy place, aren't you? Hearing this, the Crimson Guard stiffens his heart, boiling with resentment. You bastard. Seeing the guard remain silent, he asks, What's wrong? I know he's got a bit of intelligence. But in my eyes, he'll always just be a brat. Unbai Ong leans his face close to the Crimson Guard, squinting with a smirk. Oh, is that a secret too? Has he been investigating me? He narrows his eyes, silently assessing the other man before speaking to dismiss him. I'll call you later. For now, get out. Unbai Ong places his hand on the windowsill. Watching the Crimson Guard's retreating figure, he mutters suspiciously, He is definitely hiding something. That younger brother of mine is surely plotting something. He immediately orders Yosang, go and investigate. See what he's hiding and verify if it's true that he's lost his martial arts. I trust you'll do a good job. You've been performing excellently. Yosang asks, Just investigate. He flashes a cruel smile. If you don't, it won't be as fun. Go break his ankle or something similar to him. Yosang bows, accepting the command. As you wish. Back on this side, Mok King Vun is standing holding the human skin-bound book. He uses his fingers to feel the surface. The pulse transferred through his fingertips is no hallucination. It is the vivid sensation of flesh and skin beneath his touch. He widens his eyes in shock. What he senses from the book is like a corpse that is no longer living, yet is writhing in pain. It is something on the verge of death. He stares intently at the book, wondering why such a monstrous thing would appear here. Mok King Vun is even more curious about the contents inside. How intriguing. I want to open this right now to see what secrets it holds. Just then, a purple ring of light suddenly appears right behind him. He sees the demon monk stepping out from within that circle. Facing the demon monk, he asks, What is this? The demon. Monk's eyes widen in terror. He suddenly clasps his hands together and kneels down to pay respects. This strange behavior from the monk leaves him bewildered. The monk continues to bow, his body trembling with fear. This makes him even more curious about the connection between the book and the man's bizarre reaction. He smiles with interest as he looks down at the book in his hand. This book definitely contains something. This is extremely interesting. He puts the book into a wooden box, but if a monk has appeared here, there must be someone else lurking nearby. Realizing something, he looks up and exclaims, So that's how it is. Someone has broken into the room. There was only him, and the monk above was just one of the traps he'd already overcome, followed by the solid stone doors and the secret passage leading down. Outside, the courtyard was empty, with not a soul in sight. Suddenly, a shadow nimbly leaped across the rooftops. It landed on a branch and looked down at Gochan, who was yawning in his sleep. Yosang jumped away, his head filled with questions. Why was he guarding this place? He should have been protecting the wounded young master. He landed on the neighboring roof and saw a door slightly ajar with the lights still on inside. Is he hiding something? He peeked inside to observe. Yosang watched him sleep, then quietly climbed through the window. What, is he really just sleeping? Then why bother having Gochan guard the outside? He intended to check his internal energy, but accidentally spotted the book on the table. I have to check his internal power first. He widened his eyes in shock and hurriedly picked up the book. Yosang flipped through the pages, and after seeing the contents, he was so terrified he had to cover his mouth. This is the real deal. He was captivated by the book. How could he have this? No, that doesn't matter. As long as I get this, the position will surely belong to the young master. Yosang was smug about snatching the book, never realizing that he had been standing behind him the whole time. This will be our victory. Mok Kyung-woon suddenly reached out and grabbed his head. Before he could react, he slammed his head hard against the table. He pulled his head up and asked in a threatening tone that made him scream in terror, What are you doing in my bedroom? Feeling sleepy, you bastard. So he was just pretending to sleep. Seeing he didn't answer, he repeatedly smashed his face into the table, blood splattering all over his own face. All right, then, I'll help you get to sleep. After all, I'm a kind person. Yosang was terrified to the core, only able to scream, He's lost his mind. His head was continuously smashed into the table, blood pooling everywhere. While he was still dizzy, seeing stars from the pain and unable to collect his thoughts, Mok Kyung-woon looked at the face on the floor and couldn't help but marvel. You're still conscious. Only then did his opponent realize with a jolt that he was being hung upside down. He began to struggle and scream, What is this? Where am I? Mok Kyung-woon drove a knife hard into the floor in front of him and said in a low voice, "Now let's have a talk." He laughed while rolling up his sleeves, sending chills down his opponent's spine, causing him to sweat profusely. Cho Yo-sang lay motionless on the floor, blood trickling from his nose, making the person next to him exclaim in surprise. Go-chan backed away, crying out, "Cho Yo-sang, why is he here?" Mok Kyung-woon rubbed his eyes and turned to ask, "You know him?" He calmly explained, "His name is Cho Yo-sang, one of the second young master's most capable guards." Mok Kyung-woon narrowed his eyes, deadly serious. "The second young master. Why is he appearing here?" Go-chan rested his chin in his hand, deep in thought. "I'm not sure, but looking at that mask he's wearing, he's definitely plotting something shady." Hearing this, Kyung-woon grew pensive as well. Suddenly, Kyung-woon hoisted Cho Yo-sang onto his shoulder and laughed. "Then I'll just have to squeeze it out of him." Go-chan hurriedly stopped him. "Wait a second." Go-chan panicked, reaching out to block Kyung-woon. "Are you planning to torture him? You can't. It's best to just let him go." Go-chan anxiously reminded him, "The second young master is famous for covering for his subordinates, especially the talented ones. If you hurt him, the second young master will definitely fly into a rage." Before he could finish his sentence, Kyung-woon twisted the man's arm hard. Making him scream in pain, Kyung-woon calmly replied, "All right, I'll consider it." Even as Go-chan knelt at his feet, pleading in desperation, Kyung-woon calmly carried Cho Yo-sang out of the room. "Young master, don't just consider it. That won't end well at all." Go-chan flopped onto the ground, letting out a curse. "Damn it, whatever happens, happens." He sighed, trying to calm himself. "He won't kill that guy, right? Even though he's reckless, he's a smart person. Remember the last time regarding the clan head?" He suddenly went silent, his face turning pale as a sheet. With a trembling voice, He won't actually kill him, will he?" In the room, Mok Kyung-woon sat across from Cho Yo-sang, who was tied upside down. He ordered, "Let me go right now." Mok Kyung-woon asked blankly, "What was that? Why would I do that?" Even while hanging, Cho Yo-sang maintained an arrogant attitude. "Why, you've seen my face, you should know. I came here on the orders of young master Mok Yunbai-ong. Do you think you can live in peace after harming me?" He smirked confidently. "Don't play games, just hand that secret letter over to me. I'll make sure the young master spares your life." He thought he was successfully intimidating him to extract the plan, but it was all in vain. Mok Kyung-woon curled his lip in mockery. "Interesting." Cho Yo-sang was stunned. "What?" He picked up the sharp, cold knife and said, "My elder brother sure values his subordinates, doesn't he? But looking at your current situation, do you really think you're still in the position of power?" Kyung-woon stepped behind Cho Yo-sang. "All right then, I'll untie you." He nodded eagerly. "Good, a wise decision." Cho Yo-sang kept rambling, "I'll convince the young master to spare you." Mid-sentence, he suddenly looked down at his right hand. One finger was missing and fresh blood was gushing out. Mok Kyung-woon spoke with a crazed tone. "Want to play a game?" "Whose finger is this, I wonder?" Cho Yo-sang froze, staring at the severed finger on the floor. "My finger. It's been cut off." "Why don't I feel any pain? I can't move. I can't even feel my inner energy anymore." Kyung-woon spoke up, pulling him from his panic. "I used a paralytic poison." He added, "I made it myself from the herbs in the pharmacy. You won't feel anything from the neck down for the next few hours." Cho Yo-sang raged. "You!" Kyung-woon cut him off. "Now it's time to answer my question." He raised the bloodied knife with a demonic grin. "If you don't answer immediately, I'll cut off a finger every second." Before Cho Yo-sang could recover from his shock, Kyung-woon followed up. "First question, why did the second young master send you here?" His face hardened, his lips curling into a mad, twisted smile. "Let's begin." Cho Yo-sang shrieked, "What are you?" With a swift motion, Kyung-woon severed another finger. His voice sounded terrifying, his expression manic as he raised the blade to strike again. Not answering. "Then we'll just keep going." "Two!" Cho Yo-sang screamed in fury. "You bastard, stop right now!" As if he hadn't heard a word, he slashed down at the hand again. "Three." Kyung-woon lopped off another finger and said calmly, "Four." Cho Yo-sang was in a total panic now, starting to beg, "Stop it. Please, I'm begging you." Finally, he couldn't take it anymore and howled, "Stop! I'll talk!" He didn't care. His face remained twisted in madness. "The next one will be the thumb, then." Cho Yo-sang glanced at the blade and hesitated for a second, then blurted everything out. He ordered me to check if you had really lost all your martial arts. Kyung-woon stayed silent while Cho Yo-song gasped in pain, his breathing growing rapid and shallow. Kyung-woon placed his index finger on his lips deep in thought. Lost my martial arts, huh? He smirked. He changed sides pretty quickly. Next question. Kyung-woon looked down. It was the guard Gam who told him, right? The sudden question caught Cho Yo-song off guard. He nodded hesitantly. Kyung-woon sat down and marveled. He's pretty smart, isn't he? Telling half the truth while hiding his own failure. Cho Yo-song frowned, veins bulging on his forehead. But just from that one question he knew Guard Gam betrayed him. Did he suspect it from the very beginning? If so, why is he torturing me like this? He turned to look at him. I have no more questions. This left Cho Yo-song drenched in cold sweat, terrified to his core. Kyung-woon, one hand on his hip, pondered, what should I do now? Cho Yo-song hung upside down from the ceiling, unable to speak, paralyzed with absolute terror. A warning blared in his head. He's going to kill me. The man tightened his grip on the blade. The killing intent radiating from his body made the air suffocating. Cho Yo-song stammered, "Ah!" He watched him intently. Suddenly he screamed out a vow, catching him off guard. I swear I will be loyal to you if you just let me live, Cho Yo-song pleaded. I didn't expect you to be this clever. You are the one who deserves to be the head of the house. Please help me make the right choice for the future of the Ma family. He continued, I'm ready to risk my life for you. Please take me in, I'll do whatever you want. I'm begging you. Kyung-woon, hand on his hip, coldly cut him off. All right. Cho Yo-song was stunned. He continued, You'll have to do one thing for me anyway. He gave a devilish smile. I'm ordering you right now. Cho Yo-song sighed in relief. Thinking he had been saved, he hurriedly replied, Yes, tell me I'll do it. But before he could finish, Kyung-woon drove his blade straight into his throat. Cho Yo-song coughed up blood, his eyes wide with disbelief as he stared at him. He let out a painful, gurgling cry, but Kyung-woon only responded calmly. You said you were ready to risk your life for me, didn't you? He slashed horizontally across his neck. Kyung-woon's eyes turned wild. Then let me borrow a little bit of your blood. As his consciousness faded, Cho Yo-song could only curse silently before closing his eyes. This bastard. Who could have expected this? Is this my end? After Cho Yo-song breathed his last. Kyung-woon studied the book encased in the box. He muttered to himself, I can't open this prayer bead by force. He dragged the wooden crate closer to the corpse so the blood would flow into it. He thought, this is definitely a seal from the yin-yang sect filled with evil energy. According to the book, I just need to pour something impure onto it. It will weaken its power. The blood of Cho Yo-song, who died in resentment and misery, I'll use this to break the seal. A total corruption. The air in the room suddenly turned bone-chillingly cold. Only the sound of blood dripping from the box echoed. The ceiling rings around the book began to crack. They shattered, fragments flying everywhere. As the sound of the breaking rings echoed, Kyung-woon stared intently at the book, wondering what was about to emerge. Suddenly, a stream of blood flowed out of the crate, reaching his very feet. A trail of blood stretched in a straight line across the room, leaving him stunned. What on earth is this? The blood from the box suddenly erupted violently. It spilled out more and more. He immediately became alert, scanning his surroundings as blood splattered all over the room. It clung to the pillars, yet the flow showed no signs of stopping. A vortex of blood began to form from the box. Kyung-woon stood stunned before the eerie spectacle. It's all happening right before my eyes. The tornado's hazy shape is slowly fading away. A human figure is revealed wrapped in a thick, blood-soaked cocoon. Something inside begins to move slowly, breaking through the bloody membrane to reveal the form of a person. The woman inside unleashes a burst of power, shattering the blood shell and sending it flying. I'm forced to raise my arms to block the pressure, and Kin-van steps back. Red blood splatters everywhere, soaking my clothes. A single drop lands in the still pool of blood, returning the scene to an eerie silence. Kin-van gasps, staring ahead in shock. A vibrant red robe flutters in midair, surrounded by dancing red butterflies. The entire scene is drenched in crimson as the woman steps out. Kin-van stands still, watching her figure. Clad in an all-red outfit, they stand there staring at each other in the silence. Than Lin, with her sharp features, wears a hat and a veil as red as fresh blood. It perfectly matches the clothes she's wearing. Kin-van frowns, looking at her full of suspicion. He thinks to himself, a spirit of this caliber. This definitely isn't just a level 6 spirit. According to the yin-yang theory, this is clearly a level 5 vengeful spirit Thanlin. My eyes widen in disbelief. I told myself I was only expecting to run into a level 6 or something similar. Thinking back, I guess this is still lucky. Suddenly, a terrifying pressure bears down on me, forcing me to my knees. The impact is so intense that the blood on the floor sprays upward. Thanlin gently lifts her veil and speaks, "How naive." Kinvan coughs violently, struggling to push himself back up. She reaches up and pulls the pipe tucked into her hair. Then she says, "Offer your soul and your spirit to me." Kinvan frowns, observing Thanlin without answering. A level 5 vengeful spirit. Thanlin. An ancient spirit full of deep grudges. She has existed for over a century, possessing enough power to manipulate an entire area, creating visual and auditory hallucinations that cause extreme pain. It would take at least 10 Taoist masters to suppress her, an incredibly dangerous creature. Thanlin holds her pipe and slowly exhales a hazy cloud of smoke. She suddenly fixes her gaze on Kinvan, looking at him blankly. Watching Kinvan struggle to stand, she says, "What's wrong? Still won't offer your soul? You really are a slow one." He grits his teeth, his body trembling, but he forces himself to stand straight. He thinks the books weren't wrong, they are incredibly dangerous. He coughs once. Now I understand why. But then Kinvan smirks. Interesting. Thanlin looks confused. Kinvan braces his hands against the ground and replies calmly, "No matter how high level a vengeful spirit is, you all just want to possess someone else's body. The similarities are laughable. It makes me laugh. You bunch of spirits wouldn't be able to do a single thing without a shell, would you?" Thanlin frowns, clenching her pipe without answering. Kinvan struggles to stand, one hand supporting his injured thigh. "So if you want my body that badly, why don't you come take it yourself?" Thanlin waves her hand, and a stream of water from the ground forms a spear lunging straight at him. Kinvan is shocked to see a hole in his left side. Blood is pouring out uncontrollably. Thanlin sneers, "You foolish mortal." Kinvan collapses, crying out in pain. She lunges toward him, shouting in anger, "You think you can rely on yourself?" Thanlin waves her hand again, and sharp needles of blood fly straight at him. They slash across half his face, causing him to scream in agony. One side of Kinvan's face is mangled by the blood needles. Thanlin taunts, "And you wanted to dirty my hands." He coughs weakly. She smirks coldly and waves her hand again. "See, do you understand now? You will never make it." Kinvan wobbles about to collapse. Thanlin coldly reminds him, "So all you need to do is obediently surrender your soul to me." Kinvan stretches out his leg, trying to use it to keep his balance. She exhales a cloud of smoke, holding her pipe, and walks closer, staring at him. Kinvan uses his hand to cover the bleeding wound. On his side, panting. His stance starts to steady. Thanlin narrows her eyes, watching him. He can still hold on. Even though his face has been torn apart like that, Kinvan coughs violently. She assesses him. "It seems you aren't just an ordinary brat, but that won't change the outcome." Thanlin waves her hand, controlling blood vortexes to bind Kinvan's feet. His eyes widen in shock. She flicks her hand sharply, sending Kinvan flying with a spray of blood. He slams hard into a nearby pillar. Thanlin slowly floats closer. "Fine, mortal. I'll give you a choice. If you surrender your soul to me, I will grant one of your wishes." Kinvan is puzzled. "My wish? Why are you suddenly saying that?" Thanlin floats right up to his face. "Just consider it." He asks back, "Consider it." She continues, "If I keep forcing you and destroying your soul like this, then I won't get anything out of it." Kinvan ponders for a moment and asks, "And if I refuse?" Thanlin widens her eyes, smiling threateningly. "Then I will kill you and find another soul." Kinvan smirks, saying nothing. Suddenly he speaks up. Thanlin is so excited she's impatient. "Very well. Tell me, what is your wish?" "I can sense the intense hatred within you. I know you aren't the type to settle for an ordinary life. Did someone betray you? Or did someone kill your loved ones? Tell me whoever it is. I will personally tear them to pieces and erase their souls from this world." Kinvan smirks with a hidden meaning while Thanlin becomes increasingly excited. "So tell me, what is your wish?" Kinvan smiles coldly, his voice mocking. "My wish is for you to shut your mouth and obediently become my spirit beast." Thanlin freezes, clenching her teeth in annoyance as she looks at Kinvan. She is so furious that her entire body radiates a killing aura and blood-red whirlwinds surge beneath her feet. "Then take this!" Thanlin hissed, forcing the blood streaks to surge into the air. Try and endure it. She furrowed her brow, flicking her wrist to command the blood to dive downward. You fool! Thanlin directed the burning red torrent straight at Kinvan, making him widen his eyes in shock. In an instant, the blood streaks lunged at him, piercing through his body and bringing agonizing pain. Thanlin's eyes were wild, her voice dripping with venom. How long can you hold out when your flesh is torn to shreds, your bones mangled into grotesque shapes, and your body completely destroyed? Thanlin hovered in the air. Watching Kinvan enveloped by the blood, she sighed with feigned pity. Such a shame. It looks like your soul has already suffered a bit of damage. Kinvan's entire body sank into the river of blood. He drifted deeper. This liquid was far redder than agate cherries, thick, sticky, filthy, and reeking of metal. Every sense from touch to taste confirmed to him that this was blood. Yet it didn't taste like the blood he had savored back when he was known as the demon. The scythe wasn't like this. What did it taste like back then? It was a primal shudder, that hot, warm feeling. That was life. Kinvan frowned deeply. However, what I feel now is death. Thanlin gasped, her eyes widening as she stared ahead. Suddenly, cracks appeared in mid-air, shattering everything. It was all an illusion. A massive explosion was about to rip through the spot where the two of them stood. The cracks widened, growing violent. The force of the explosion slammed Thanlin against the wall, causing her to scream in pain. Kinvan calmly stepped out from the crumbling remnants of the illusion. Thanlin stared in horror, watching Kinvan stand in the middle of the room without a single scratch. Her eyes went wide, her mouth agape in terror. Oh... He glanced at her with a chilling gaze that she couldn't believe. She screamed internally, "No way! It's impossible!" On the tip of Thanlin's finger, a blood-red butterfly suddenly appeared. It emitted a sickly yellow light from her palm before fluttering away. It left behind trails as red as fresh blood, heading straight for Kinvan, where he stood motionless. Suddenly, the butterfly dissolved into a streak of blood right in front of him. She furrowed her brow as if realizing something. A thought flashed through her mind. The five senses seal, a Taoist technique used to nullify the senses, allowing one to break free from any illusion. Easier said than done, she thought. Breaking free from reality is extremely difficult even for the most elite Taoist masters, she mused. How can this brat? He isn't even a Taoist. Was he born with the qualities of one? Kinvan sighed, then suddenly tilted his head back and laughed loudly. Thanlin snapped, furious. You dare laugh even if you can escape the illusion. Do you really think you can leave this place? How? Kinvan bowed his head, chuckling softly. As he opened his eyes, he said, Oh, I was just thinking of something very funny. Thanlin was startled, repeating, Funny! She roared, You! But before she could finish, she saw him laughing, clutching a book in his hand. According to yin-yang theory for a demon, the more ancient it is, the higher the chance it has a physical vessel and is connected to it. Cold sweat broke out on her forehead. So this book, he ferociously bit into the book. It was definitely her vessel. Thanlin immediately coughed up a mouthful of blood, screaming in extreme agony. He grinned, refusing to stop tearing at it. I guessed right. She flew into a rage. You damned mortal! You dare, impossible. No one can directly damage a book formed from the demonic energy of a spirit. That's why even Taoists can only seal it away. How did he do it? A whirlwind of blood surged toward him while she shrieked, You've really angered me now. Thanlin lunged at him like a madwoman, gripping his throat tightly, her face twisted into a ferocious scowl. Try saying this is an illusion now. Her eyes burned with the fire of hatred. I don't need your soul anymore. Die? You fool daring to throw away the grace I bestowed upon you, shatter and vanish. Even while being choked, he struggled to speak. Strange. You were able to take the book out to question me, but why didn't you do it yourself? Thanlin's eyes widened as he spoke. Just as I thought. You can't touch this book yourself, can you? Right, Kinvan continued. She threatened, You dare. She ordered, tightening her grip. Spit it out right now. Blue veins bulged on Kinvan's face. He thought triumphantly. The blood that entered my body earlier is raging through me. It was surging backward, flowing through his entire body. He desperately tried to spit it out, feeling as though his whole body was being torn apart by the agony. It was like the first time he had ingested poison, but what he felt more than the pain was the sheer hateful fury of this vengeful spirit. Her hatred was as intense as his own, and so was her thirst for revenge. She screamed, "You!" Qin Van smiled wickedly, saliva dripping from his mouth. She completely lost her composure and shrieked, "You're insane!" Fanlin used all her might to choke him until he spat out blood. She stared at him, eyes wide. In that moment, within her eyes, there was only the image of him laughing in triumph. In an instant, the scenery around them shifted. He stood frozen before a burning castle. Mo Qin Van looked around. Where is this place? All around him lay heaps of corpses. In the center, a girl knelt, her sword plunged deep into the ground. He was surprised. Who is that? Mo Qin Van recognized the familiar figure. Fanlin was covered in blood, as if she had just emerged from a brutal battle. A streak of fresh blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. She tore off a piece of her sleeve and used it to bind the sword hilt to her hand tightly. As she spoke, she raised her sword, pointing it directly at the person sitting above. He stared intently in that direction. Even though he couldn't hear what she was saying, he could feel the sheer hatred radiating from her. Her face was filled with fury as she and the other person stood locked in a fierce confrontation. The man had silver hair, a pair of long horns, and golden eyes that narrowed as he stared down at the person before him. Then he let out a twisted smile, making her eyes widen in shock. She lunged straight at him, but he just looked up with a cunning grin and drove his hand directly into her chest. Blood splattered everywhere. His speed was simply too fast. Too fast for the human eye to follow. He pulled his hand back, causing blood to gush violently from the wound. She stared wide-eyed at what he held in his hand. It was her heart. She was in complete and utter shock, and then she collapsed. Blood continued to pour from her body, and suddenly many figures in cloaks and wide-brimmed hats appeared all around her. They stepped forward and surrounded her, all of them raising their weapons and aiming at her. At this point, she was completely exhausted and had no strength left to fight. Blood splattered everywhere, her eyes wide with lingering resentment as someone stepped over the pool of blood toward her. Mo Jingyun slowly approached her where only fragments of her remained. A book suddenly appeared beside them. A blood-curdling scream jolted him awake. He was bewildered. What on earth was going on? A long red thread emerged from his chest, the red thread, and her hat fell down. She sobbed, asking, "Have I become a spirit beast?" Mo Jingyun let out a sigh of relief, thinking to himself, "Wow, I managed to get myself a spirit beast." But she still couldn't accept this reality. "No way," she said in a panic. "A spirit beast?" Suddenly, she shouted the sound, startling Jingyun, and then she used her hand to tightly grip his throat. "Let me go right now." Instantly, a red mark appeared on her neck, causing her pain. She pulled her hand back, coughing violently, and yelled in a rage, "Damn it!" Mo Jingyun had narrowly escaped death. Watching her, he thought, "It seems like a spirit beast feels the same pain as its master, huh?" He wondered, "Wait, what about the demonic monk? I just came back from the dead, didn't I?" Meanwhile, the demonic monk in a translucent state was crying his eyes out. He called out to her, "Looks like we're stuck with each other for a long time now. Why don't you introduce yourself?" She was still casually smoking, and he introduced himself. "I'm Mo Jingyun, and what about you?" "What should I call you?" Even though she didn't bother paying attention, he kept rambling. "If you don't want to tell me, I'll just give you a name myself," he said with a sly smile. "How about Green Dung Beetle?" Hearing that, she turned her head and snapped, "Are you insane?" Mo Jingyun laughed with satisfaction. "Looks like you don't like that name, huh?" She was furious. "How dare you mock me?" He continued, "If you don't like that name, then why don't you just tell me your real name?" She looked away. "I won't reveal my name to a stupid mortal." He was speechless, then thought for a moment. "All right, then. I'll just call you whatever I want." A thought flashed through his mind. Since she was a Qingling spirit, he stared at her intently. "Qingling? I'll call you that, okay?" She scoffed, still not caring. He sighed. "She's so arrogant." "Can't I just beat her into submission?" "That would make sense, too, considering how I dragged her into this world. I'll just slowly convince her to like me instead." Mo Jingyun said, "Anyway, this book is bound in human skin." He picked it up. "Qingling, do you know what's inside here?" She replied coldly, "Who is Qingling? I don't know anyone by that name." She flicked her cigarette. "I don't know. Stop asking me. I'm busy." He was speechless, as if he had just discovered something. On the pages of the book were countless words and strange symbols written in blood. Mo Jingyun became intrigued. Bound in human skin and written in blood. How interesting. He continued to ponder. But none of the symbols seemed to connect to each other at all. What does that mean? She looked at him and smirked. He looked at her and said to himself, It seems she doesn't intend to tell me either. How long has she been staring at me? Guess I'll have to figure it out myself. He flipped the book open and Mo Jing-yun read aloud the words written inside, "Absolute based on the consciousness of that entity." She turned her head back, her eyes staring blankly into the void, a place where she believed that before the illusion a tangible form must exist. The Chinese characters appeared, but in reality it wasn't like that at all. She couldn't help but be stunned. Seeing countless mystical purple streams of light enveloping him, he continued to chant steadily, his lips murmuring about demons disturbing the minds of the righteous. The ancient bloodline contained a power that could shift the very heavens. He exclaimed in shock and couldn't flip the page anymore. The book in his hands had started to wrinkle and wither. She screamed in terror, "That's impossible!" He startled, turning to Than Lin, asking in utter astonishment how he could have possibly done that. Mok Kin Van replied, confused, asking in return if this book was the source of it all, as the veins on his body suddenly began to bulge intensely. Even Than Lin was caught up in that surge of influence. As a murky purple mist enveloped her, she quickly ordered him to hold his breath immediately. He obeyed at once, teeth clenched against his lips, trying to relax his mind and clear away all wandering thoughts. Even though he stood motionless, the book remained still in his hands until a violent burst of purple light erupted from the pages, and then the book slowly dropped. Thangling observed closely, muttering to herself about such incredible speed. The book slipped from his hands and hit the ground. As it touched the earth, she remained lost in thought, wondering how someone who had never learned martial arts could dissolve a binding ritual. She forced a smile, remarking that simply performing the binding ritual was a feat in itself. She whispered that she was about to witness a world-shattering event. Mok Kin Van slumped down, panting with exhaustion, wondering what the hell just happened. She replied that because he couldn't control the ritual, he had been breathing all wrong. He sneered, chiding her for only explaining it now, which made her furious, and she pointed a finger at him. She asserted she did that only to keep him from getting hurt by his own stupidity. Mok Kin Van could only offer an awkward smile, then continued to ask about the nature of the ritual. She explained it was the ability to attract and manipulate matter at will. He asked about the pain in his abdomen and the stiffness in his tendons, and she patiently replied that it was because he was channeling his ki incorrectly. Failing to pull anything in his chi became chaotic. She looked away and suggested he try it on that corpse lying motionless in the pool of blood over there. He dragged the corpse closer, while Than Lin instructed him to focus on his core energy. As the dead man's chi was slowly dissipating, he asked to confirm the spot was at the navel right. She seemed annoyed at having to guide him so minutely. Mok Kin Van could only smile awkwardly while she huffed coldly, telling him to try chanting again. He began to recite the incantations. Mok Kin Van closed his eyes tight, silently chanting about eternity, the mind and the void turning into reality. The incantations continued mentioning Chinese characters' demonic influence and ancient bloodlines. Carrying the power to turn the world upside down, purple light radiated from his hands more brilliantly and fiercely than ever. He felt a new shocking flow of power, a warm current moving through his veins. It crept into his palms, swirling around his core energy. Than Lin, taking a drag from her pipe, explained that this ritual could pull anything, even chi. She glanced at him from the side, asking if he could feel it. That was the operating principle of the binding ritual. Mok Kin Van, drenched in sweat, looked at the glowing orb in his palm and realized this was the key that Go Chan had mentioned. According to Go Chan, gathering chi usually took a very long time, but this ritual allowed him to absorb others' energy to accumulate chi much faster. In other words, he could increase his power in an extremely short amount of time. Suddenly, the young master went still. Mok Kin Van said that the energy had vanished. Thang Lin explained that that was just the nature of chi. That was why a special method was needed to collect energy, otherwise it wouldn't be able to gather at the core. He needed a method to shape its unique properties, to avoid mixing it with others' energy. She casually held her pipe, asserting that absorbing 10 units of chi through a binding ritual was unthinkable. Mok Kin Van looked disappointed, thinking he had found a shortcut. Than Lin laughed and said that becoming a skilled martial artist wasn't that easy. She comforted him, telling him not to be too let down as this ritual still had countless other uses. This left the young master curious. She explained that the binding ritual was just the foundation of the 8 arts of destruction, but just by understanding it well, it opened up endless possibilities, such as focusing chi into the hands through circulation. The young master interrupted, skeptical about how to perform it. The woman replied patiently, "You just have to imagine it." This surprised him greatly. With an open attitude, she told him that chanting and circulating chi were just ways to visualize it. If he could do that, he could absolutely put chi into his hands. She thought to herself, easier said than done. He certainly can't do it since he hasn't been trained. Wasting this much chi is such a pity. The young master began to focus and lead the chi to his hands. A purple aura gradually surrounded his hands. Mo Kin Van suddenly clenched his fist, and Than Lin, seeing that sight, was utterly astonished. He swung his arm still wrapped in chi. A direct punch into the house pillar. It cracked bit by bit. She stood frozen, watching the young master break a house pillar with nothing but the chi in his hand. She gasped, "No way, he's just a beginner. How could he do this?" She hadn't expected that level of power from him, while the young master felt nothing but exhilaration. How wonderful! She still couldn't believe her eyes, wondering who on earth he really was. She had never met anyone so extraordinary in her life. She was shaken, wondering about his background while the young master was still preoccupied with his ability to pass through walls. Mo Kin Van was extremely excited, finally understanding why everyone prized martial arts so much, because once you had it in your hands, finishing off an opponent became much easier. A sense of fear suddenly rose in her at his words. He had seen through the essence of martial arts, believing that training the mind through martial arts was just nonsense. After all, wasn't the core purpose of martial arts just a way for people to send their opponents to the afterlife? The young man hadn't given up, continuing to ask, "So what is the second technique?" She smiled enigmatically. "That is..." The young master wore a sinister smile as if waiting for her to say it, but she was quick-witted enough not to fall into the trap. Almost got played by a mere mortal, she thought. Fine, I'll tell you everything. Than Lin gritted her teeth, annoyed, and smoothed back her hair. Damn it, I've said more than I intended just because he learns too fast. Now I understand why those old geezers are always obsessed with their disciples. Mo Kin Van called out to Than Lin, asking out of curiosity, but she brushed him off. Don't talk to me. The young man looked disappointed. Is that all? How annoying. I still had a dozen questions for her, and she says it'll just disappear. What is this icy sensation still lingering on my skin? Should I ask one more thing? Nah, forget it. She wouldn't answer anyway. Tracking down clues on my own is part of the fun. He turned to the guard. Than Lin, let's get out of here. In the dead of night, only the sound of rustling wind remained. A woman appeared, the bodyguard of Lady Se Ok Huang Fuang Huang Cat, as the door slowly creaked open. The place felt sinister, filled with terrifying statues and objects wrapped up tight and sealed with a talisman. A bizarre statue with the hands of a Buddha, but the body of a demon. Standing alone among the statues, she wondered, wooden statues. Why is this room filled with such horrifying things? She stood before a torch, staring intently at it. Juan spoke with a trembling voice. Surely you have heard the news as I sent word in advance. But Master Missing is dead. He was murdered by that guy, the third young master. The statue before her remained motionless, completely still. She continued, This is how Lady Ze Ok expresses her sorrow. 300 taels of silver. She will pay an additional 400 taels if you accept a new mission to eliminate that third young master. Do you dare to do it? In the silent space, the girl stood before the statue under the flickering light. Suddenly, the lamp went out. Very well, she nodded. Many thanks. After finishing, she stepped outside. Damn it. There wasn't a soul in sight, so why do I feel like someone is watching me? It's giving me the chills. If it weren't for orders, I would never set foot in this godforsaken place. Inside the room, the statue still stood tall among the others neatly lined up. A view from above revealed that the corpse of Missing was lying right below. Suddenly, voices echoed from somewhere. I guarantee it. It was a cat spirit. I agree. The brat recounted how the maidservant was left hanging in midair. It must be a vengeful spirit. Maybe that third young master has been possessed by it. But does that brat have the ability to tame a vengeful spirit as a shikigami? No way. Unless it's a spiritual beast or a demon. How could anyone tame a vengeful spirit as a shikigami? Regardless, this is an urgent matter that must be dealt with immediately. One of us will have to finish off that third young master of the Makkim Manor and help that vengeful spirit move on. Understood, my lord. And so a new morning arrived. Guard Go-chan woke up and let out a long yawn. He muttered, That jerk. I only just closed my eyes after staying up all night and he's already making me run errands. When he brought the coal brazier, the third young master thanked him. The guard thought, at least he has manners. The coal brazier was burning fiercely. Go-chan asked curiously, What do you need this for? Kinvan replied. I need to burn something. He didn't quite get the meaning. The man's expression suddenly darkened. Thinking of a worst-case scenario, the third young master said calmly, That's right. It's the secret documents of the Makkim Manor. The guard gasped in shock, but the third young master didn't seem to care. His hands nimbly tore through page after page. Each page of the secret records was shredded and dropped into the fire. Go-chan stood there trembling with fear while the third young master continued his work. Burning the secret documents, he thought to himself, This madman, is he actually burning the secret records? Kinvan stood before the blazing fire, a faint smile on his face that made Go-chan shudder with horror. Watching his actions, Go-chan screamed in panic, What are you doing? With eyes full of regret, Go-chan went on a rant that left the other man just looking away helplessly. Why are you burning that book? Even if you don't know martial arts, that book is something countless people crave. You should have put it to good use. He calmly tossed the book at Go-chan and replied, Exactly because so many people crave it, that's why I have to burn it. Huh. Kinvan stood with his hands on his hips, leaving Go-chan even more confused. You mean to be the only one who possesses it? What does that mean? He tapped his finger lightly on his temple. Right here. He smirked triumphantly. Everything has already been engraved right in here. Go. Chan's eyes widened in amazement. He turned around and ordered, I have a task for you. Standing by the window frame, Kinvan gave his instructions to Go-chan. When the sun rises, deliver this to Lady Zeok and my second brother. Huh. Go-chan was filled with suspicion at the words he had just heard. Didn't you just say that many people are targeting it? The fire flared up violently, turning the secret manual into ashes. He thought to himself, I like a harmonious family. He gave a mysterious smile. If everyone has a share. He looked amused. That scene would be quite interesting, wouldn't it? Go-chan was stunned by what he had said. The sun began to wake up, peeking out from behind the distant mountains. The thin blanket was folded neatly. My mornings usually go by quite fast. Guard Cam busied himself tidying up the bedding immediately upon waking. I always make the bed and change my clothes. After cleaning the room, he began to review his schedule for the day. Changing his clothes and strapping his sword to his waist, this was a habit from his days as an assassin. A life of strict discipline. Guard Cam meticulously tied his hair and fastened the ribbon, but thought to himself, I won't need to do this much longer. He leisurely poured a cup of hot tea and sipped it slowly. Just as long as it succeeds. Dreaming of becoming the two young masters' trusted aide, he leaned against the window, staring out at the scenery, lost in visions of a glorious future where he'd become the head guard. He held a teacup, a nostalgic smile on his face, feeling as though it were only yesterday that he was just a lone assassin. His heart stirred, and just then a guard in orange pushed the door open and stepped in. Young Master Unbai Ong is calling for you. He squinted toward where the two young masters were staying, and the orange-clad guard shoved the door with such force it slammed with a deafening bang. He bolted out like a lightning bolt, cursing inwardly, Damn it, earlier! His face twisted with rage, blood trickling from the side of his head as he kept muttering, Damn it, earlier! Upon seeing the young master, the orange-clad guard heard the two young masters declare that Yosong had to be made to disappear immediately. The master sat on his chair and continued, I already sent a guard to check. If the third brother has truly lost his martial arts, and now he's gone missing. Unbai Ong's face scrunched up in fury, his eyes boring into the orange-clad guard. Are you trying to lie to me? The orange-clad guard panicked, trying to explain, Something's not right. I wouldn't dare, young master, there must be some misunderstanding. The master hurled a plate straight at the guard's head. Shut your mouth! He bellowed in a blind rage. Then why hasn't that guard returned? Do you take me for a fool? The orange-clad guard was shaking with anger but couldn't fight back. He just clenched his fists. Why? Why is everything suddenly falling apart like this? Damn it, in this situation. There's no one left to lean on. He wasn't ready to give up. Trembling, he begged Unbai Ong, Master, that was my life's work, everything I sacrificed, please give me more time. I will find that guard. To prove he wasn't lying, as the master remained skeptical, the orange-clad guard held up his arm and swore a blood oath. Why should I give you another chance? I swear it on this very arm. He gritted his teeth insistent. For a martial artist, the right arm is their life. Unbai Ong watched him in silence, a heavy quiet filling the room for a moment. Finally, he relented. Fine. He roared the command, prove it. I'll give you 4 hours. If you find that guard, I'll believe you. If not, don't bother coming back. Go find some hole to die in." The orange-clad guard bowed and clasped his hands, accepting the order. Understood. As he walked away, he muttered, "Come to think of it, everything started rotting the moment I brought that imposter in." He wiped the blood from his head with a cloth, not entirely sure. But if that guy caused all this, I'll kill him! Just then he ran into Go-chan, who was wandering over. Go-chan was nodding off when a shout startled him. Before he could even regain his senses, the orange-clad guard grabbed his throat and slammed him against the wall. Go-chan didn't even understand what was happening, but the guard barked, "Hey, I told you to keep an eye on him, didn't I? Are you planning to betray me, huh?" Go-chan hurriedly denied it. "What are you talking about?" "Of course not." "Then what are you doing here? Did you team up with that imposter?" He grabbed Go-chan by the collar, accidentally revealing a book hidden inside. "What the hell are you talking about?" He snatched the book from Go-chan's hand, growling, "What is this?" Go-chan reached out to grab it back. "Wait, that's—" His eyes widened as he stared at the book. The title was clearly written on the cover internal arts manual. Seeing the orange-clad guard glare at him, Go-chan trembled in fear. "You!" The orange-clad guard was so angry he roared, "What kind of games are you playing behind my back?" Go-chan turned pale with terror, and the 2 servants standing nearby trembled at the horrific scene. The orange-clad guard stormed ahead, dragging Go-chan along. He gripped Go-chan's clothes and hauled him roughly to the door of Kin-vun's room, then kicked the door open. He frowned, his face radiating murderous intent as he threw his arm out. Hearing the commotion, Kin-vun turned to see Go-chan being hurled into the middle of the room. Go-chan lay motionless on the floor. His face was covered in blood. Kin-vun looked at the orange-clad guard and greeted him. The guard stood in the doorway, the air around him dark and oppressive. It mirrored his mood perfectly. "Orange-clad guard!" he bellowed. "Explain this to me clearly, damn it!" He glared at Kin-vun, who was calmly resting his chin on his hand, lost in thought. Just looking at that face makes my blood boil. "Explain what the hell, don't play these riddles with me, I don't have time," he snapped, slamming the door shut. Kin-vun just gave a calm smile. As he walked past Go-chan toward Kin-vun, he thought to himself, "Why do I feel so tense and anxious? Damn it, I made everything clear from the start." Without hesitation, he lunged forward, gripped Kin-vun by the throat, and shoved him hard against the wall. The orange-clad guard's eyes bulged with malice. "If you're planning any tricks, I'll send you to your grave." Kin-vun smiled, brushing off the accusation. "Are you really sure about that? I don't remember a thing." I gritted my teeth, glaring at that bastard. He kept screaming, demanding to know what I'd done to the second young master's guard. Despite his trembling rage, I remained unbothered, insisting, "Don't try to trick me. Have you even laid a finger on him? He knows how weak I am, and he's a real martial artist, I thought." "Yeah, I know, but something still felt off." I smirked and asked, "Isn't that right?" I gripped his wrist tight and said, "A third young master who's lost all his martial arts. How could I possibly kill him?" The orange guard froze, eyes wide with shock. I pressed on, throwing his own words back in his face. "You said so yourself, remember. What was it you said? The young master has lost all his martial arts and can't exert any force at all." I gritted my teeth as he pulled a hidden knife from his waist. I knew it. It was him. He lunged with the blade, howling in a frenzy, "Damn it, you bastard!" "So you were the one who went after Yao Song?" I laughed. "What are you going to do now? Are you planning to betray your master Orange Guard?" I laughed harder, my taunts driving him mad. "The imposter has already killed the second young master's guard." He slashed at my throat and hot blood splattered across his face. Furniture toppled, the room fell into chaos, and I slumped against the wall. Clutching my wound, I watched him collapse to his knees. The Orange Guard started shaking as he confessed, 3 years. I was an orphan trained to be an assassin. I sacrificed so much time and money just to get this far. I finally succeeded. 3 long, grueling years of doing every dirty job just to survive." He trembled, his voice breaking. "My entire life was poured into these 3 years." He looked up at me with eyes full of hatred. "But you destroyed it all. You didn't just kill the third young master, you killed the subordinate that the second young master valued most." I listened in silence as he poured his heart out. "I have to kill you whether I stay here or not. I'm dead either way. I might as well kill you and run." He suddenly stopped as if remembering something. He looked up at me and gasped. The Orange Guard crawled toward me. "Yao Song is dead." "I can't change that, but there's something else that can replace him." He pulled a book from his robes. "I don't know why you have this. You still have the rest of the secret letter, don't you? He clung to the letter like a lifeline. If I have it, I can atone for Yao Sang's death. Answer me now, I replied flatly. I don't know. Do you still not understand the situation you're in? The orange guard grabbed my head and pressed his blade against my neck, threatening, if anything happens to me, you die too, but maybe I'll change my mind if you hand over the rest of the letter. He held the cold steel against my skin. If you keep lying, I'll make sure you die in agony. You understand, right? While I'm still patient, hand it over. I paused for a second, then sighed. Fine, I'll give it to you. He let go of my head, his face smug. My life was hanging by a thread. I can't play the danger card anymore. You should have said that sooner. It would have saved us both the trouble. The orange guard held out his hand, ordering, give it here. I placed my hand on his, and he looked baffled. He roared in anger, but I answered calmly. What are you doing? I'm giving it to you, aren't I? Here's the secret letter. I grinned defiantly. It's all in my head. I used his arm to pull myself up, ignoring his shock at my claim. What? Oh, and one more thing. I suddenly gripped the orange guard's hand tight. As demonic energy began to radiate from our palms, I said, Thanks for this, orange guard. He stared in horror as I locked his hand in place. For the first time, he saw the demonic energy surging from that contact. He's draining all my power. He screamed in terror while I laughed gleefully. I was just wondering who I should use as a lab rat for this move. Who knew you'd come right to my doorstep and you're so weak too? He shrieked in fear. Let go of me! He slashed at my arm. I winced in pain, and the orange guard took the chance to stab me repeatedly, the blade digging into my side. The sharp pain forced me to let go. He seized the moment and kicked me away. The orange guard panted heavily, only a faint wisp of demonic energy left on his hand. He stared at his hand in disbelief. I can't feel my inner energy anymore. Did he drain it all? I wobbled to my feet, muttering, a first-class martial artist really isn't enough. He stared back, trembling in fear. I smiled, a wicked look on my face. Too bad. I guess I'll have to find another move to send you off. The orange guard was furious when I mentioned killing him. Do you think your little parlor tricks can take me down? He yelled confidently, A piece of trash like you wants to beat me! The orange guard lunged toward me with his knife, screaming, Die! Kinvan calmly called out to the sorcerer. A stream of dark energy coiled tightly around his hand, making it impossible for the knife to even graze him. The man was absolutely terrified, unable to believe his own eyes. He blocked that attack. How is this even possible? Suddenly, the man felt such intense pain he couldn't control his own arm anymore. He screamed, What the hell did you do? Kinvan smiled leisurely, taking the knife from his opponent's hand. Just a little parlor trick. Give that back to me. Let me show you a little something else. Guard Cam's eyes widened in shock. He had no idea that at this very moment, the sorcerer was holding his arm tight. He screamed in a panic, What? Kinvan smiled and lunged forward, retorting, I'm returning the favor right now. Kinvan swung the knife and coldly declared, I'll take both your inner energy and this blade. He plunged the knife into Guard Cam's chest, causing him to let out a wretched scream of pain. Kinvan glanced at him and said indifferently, It's all yours. After you've been stabbed, that is. Staggering backward, he cried out in agony. Blood gushed out incessantly. Guard Cam couldn't stand straight. His body swayed as if he were about to collapse. He coughed violently, feeling like he had been driven into a corner. Guard Cam touched the wound, which was leaking blood non-stop. He thought to himself, That bastard hit my weak spot perfectly. If I pull this knife out the wrong way, the blood will just pour out. What a scumbag. Not only did he steal my inner energy, but he even used otherworldly power to attack me. How stupid could I be? Why did I choose a guy like him? But then, seeing Kinvan standing there holding his left arm guard, Cam struggled to speak. You... He gritted out each word through the pain. Did you forget about the poison I fed you? Guard Cam felt a glimmer of hope. That was exactly why he had carefully prepared that specific poison. It seemed the poison was taking effect. Kinvan's face had gone completely pale. After a moment of silence, he spoke up, Keep going. Everything was playing out just as Guard Cam had predicted. He thought to himself, That's it. Let's make a deal. He asked, confused, A deal? The man continued, If we keep going like this, we're both going to lose. Guard Cam was nearly at his breaking point. He trembled. I'll give you the antidote and money. Don't you want to get out of here? Guard Cam calculated in his mind, I'll just play along for now. It's not too late to kill him later. Suddenly, he spat out a mouthful of blood, hurriedly covering his mouth with his hand, and gasped. He collapsed to the floor, vomiting blood uncontrollably. Kinvan looked at him with complete calm while guard Cam continued to heave, staring at his blood-stained hands. Why? Why is this happening? I'm still circulating my energy throughout my body. Why isn't it getting any better? He was completely bewildered, unable to understand the cause, until he suddenly realized something. Guard Cam gasped. The poison? Kinvan slowly walked toward the window, adjusted his clothes, and said, Getting stabbed by that knife didn't hurt too much, but it was still a bit painful. Guard Cam's wound was worsening. He struggled to ask, What did you do? Why are you... Kinvan opened the window and replied enthusiastically, Oh, it was a small thing, really. When you stabbed me with that knife, the blade was already covered in a load of blood. Guard Cam didn't understand what he meant and asked blankly, What are you talking about? Looking at Guard Cam, who was writhing in pain on the floor, Kinvan cheerfully said, My blood is very toxic, you see. He had no clue what the words meant. Kinvan watched his fearful expression and listed off 6-spored mushroom star, anise, scaly fern, angelica root, adonis grass, and half-summer tuber. Aren't these the ingredients of the poison you fed me? Hearing this, Guard Cam stiffened, cold sweat pouring down his face as he remembered the past. I've been eating all sorts of poisonous plants since I was a kid, so my blood has basically turned into liquid poison. Kinvan leisurely walked closer and said, Do you understand now? He leaned in close to Guard Cam's trembling face and affirmed, I don't need an antidote. Guard Cam was in a total panic, thinking to himself, It's over. I'm dead for sure. He smirked and asked, Why are you shaking so much? Is it cold because I opened the window? I did that because I was afraid you'd catch a cold from the poison. Guard Cam grabbed his own throat, trembling, unable to speak. He was so panicked he was on the verge of tears. You'll live a little longer if your body temperature drops. I did it to slow down the spread of the poison. Guard Cam's hands shook violently. He begged in terror, I beg you. Guard Cam grabbed the hem of Kinvan's clothes, lowering himself to plead for survival. Sect Master, I beg you. I'll swear loyalty to you. The fear of death washed over him. Guard Cam sobbed and clung to him. I'll be your dog. If you tell me to crawl, I'll crawl. If you tell me to lick your feet, I'll lick them. Please just spare me. He tremblingly gripped Kinvan's clothes, looking at that pathetic begging sight. He pondered for a moment, then suddenly stood up and said, I like you like this. The orange guard was stunned. Weeping, he gripped Van's hand tightly. Van said excitedly, Pretty interesting, isn't it, if only you'd been this sensible from the start. We could have worked together. The orange guard was overjoyed and started to cry out, but Van's expression suddenly shifted. He said, I might have agreed if you had just begged me from the beginning. Hearing that the orange guard asked in shock, What? The guard's blood splattered onto Van's face. Van laughed and said, You really love switching sides, don't you? He then grabbed the knife, still buried in the guard's body. So loyal, aren't you? Or were you planning to defy me? The orange guard trembled, coughing violently. Van pressed on, Just like you. You should just die. He pushed the knife in deeper. The orange guard coughed up blood in desperation. He let out a piercing scream before his body slowly fell backward. His hands shook violently, and finally he stopped moving altogether. The orange guard's eyes remained wide open, a truly horrific sight. Someone like him should have just been called a little fool from the start. Why bother struggling only to end up meeting your maker so early? After taking care of business, Van stood up and let out a sigh of relief. He stretched his body and groaned. Still hurts. He really stabbed me deep. What a pain my new outfit is ruined. He picked up the book and brushed the dust off. Well, at least everything got sorted out faster than I thought. Maybe it's for the best. If he'd figured out my true identity, I would have had to kill him sooner or later anyway. Van fell into a deep, contemplative silence. Looking at Go-chan lying on the ground, Van wondered if he should just kill him too. He felt Go-chan might still have some value. After all, the orange guard never knew that he had burned the secret letter. That proved Go-chan could keep his mouth shut, so he was still useful. Seeing him lying perfectly still, Van shouted, Get up, Go-chan! Go-chan immediately sat up in a panic. Yes. How did you know, my lord? Van replied nonchalantly. You think I didn't notice you slowly inching away from the fight? I saw you rolling away because you were afraid of getting trampled. Go-chan nervously stammered, I did that, did I? Van smiled. You know how to keep a secret. I like you better already. Go-chan scratched his head, looking anxious. Many thanks, sir. You can't just leave things in such a mess. Van told Gochan, now go tell everyone nearby to get lost. I need to dispose of the orange guard's body. Following the order, he immediately ran off. Yes, young master. The scene was completely destroyed with blood splattered everywhere. Van wondered, where should I even start? He placed his hand on the orange guard's body and channeled his power. Van probed the body, thinking, I can feel the heat of his internal energy. But basically, it's useless, and this isn't what I'm looking for anyway. It was that freezing, bone-chilling energy that made his skin crawl. Back in the basement, he guessed it was the death aura that emerged when he killed. He focused his strength to scan every corner, digging deeper. After a moment of searching, Van felt a surge of joy. Found it. It was truly different from normal internal energy. The cold energy didn't radiate outward. Instead, it coiled tightly around the core of the body's energy. This bone-chilling sensation was truly exhilarating. It was exactly the same as the feeling he got when he struck down his enemies. If I want to possess this power, am I forced to take more lives?